I am calling this meeting to order, the Middlesex Select Board meeting, 5 o'clock, Tuesday, May 20th. This is a slightly amended agenda that I added a couple of things, but are there, well, first let's approve the minutes from May 6th meeting 2025. Is there any discussion about the minutes that I sent out? Okay, so is there a motion to approve said minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Zara moves. Is there a second?
And I will second.
Paul seconds. All those in favor of the May 6 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next is approving the agenda for today. I understand that there is an addition to the agenda, and that is a approving of a driveway permit. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's right there.
Okay, so this is...
Next one over.
Okay, so this is adding, oh, my neighbor, Dennis Hill, a driveway permit on Culver Hill Road. So all those in favor of approving the agenda with that addition to the agenda, say move it.
Say move it.
Say move it.
I'm going to move it, but I'm also going to bring up some correspondence at the end that we've been forgetting.
Okay, and Zara has some correspondence to add. So with those two additions, Zara moves. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Larry seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. So we are...
I'm going to say, wait, I'm going to say at the top that I just printed, it says Tuesday, May 6th, and it should say Tuesday, May 20th. Is the agenda you just printed at the very top, does it say the 6th or the 20th?
This is the minutes of May 6th.
The minutes of May 6th.
All right, maybe I have old minutes. Oh, no, that's
Oh, you're
agenda.
looking at the minute.
I am looking at the minutes.
Yes.
Never mind, sorry.
Yeah, and
The agenda's good to go.
Yeah, the agenda's good.
Okay, we're good.
I don't know why it says 5/10/2025. It really should say 5/2025 because that's when I amended it, was 5/20. Or no, it's 4/5/20. Yeah, never mind. Okay, so we're all set.
Yep.
So let's see. Is this everything that we have? So are you Mr. Sean McVeigh as the Zoom user?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Welcome. Thank you. Your thing just says Zoom user, so it doesn't identify your name. So next on our agenda is to invite interested applicants. I had an S because there was one other person who ended up not ever responding again and not sending a letter, and so and I reached out 3 times, and so now it is one current applicant for the lister position. Sean McVeigh sent his letter. I sent it to you guys as well. I sent it to the current listers and I sent it to everyone on the board. I think we really just wanted to hear from you, Sean. You can explain a little bit of what you talked about in your letter and the experience that you bring and your interest in the position. And then the board, we can invite you to ask questions. We can invite you and Sam, Shelley and Sam. So in the room, we also have 2 listers with us, Sean. So if you had questions for them as well, I would invite you to come up if he has some questions for you so he can see you. So why don't you just take it away, Sean, and just kind of tell us about yourself and what brings you here tonight.
Well, again, thank you for considering me for the position. I have lived in Middlesex for about 20 years, up on Windley Drive off of Center Road. I worked for the Agency of Natural Resources in the Department of Environmental Conservation for about 34 years. First as an investigator, which is known as an environmental enforcement officer, and then as the chief of that unit. It was a statewide unit with 7 investigators, 8 including myself, and an administrative assistant. I ran that for 15 years, and I'm retiring at the end of May. I saw this advertisement on Picket Fences, I think it is, or Front Porch Forum, sorry. And it interested me because of the the work I did as an investigator involved alleged violations of Vermont's environmental rules, regulations, permits and statutes. And it involved a great deal of research in town clerk's offices, extensive contact with the public for the express purpose of assessing their properties in regards to compliance with state laws. I designed a system for our tracking of these complaints utilizing the grand list. And I was using the grand list on a daily basis for investigative purposes. I think it's a very useful resource. I can only imagine how much more there is in the Vermont, I think it's Vermont Pi now, the new system and the other systems involved in the tracking that you guys are doing. I just think, having read the announcement, that my background fit very well with what I understand to be the duties of the lister. And it interests me in that, it's in my town. I do wish to continue to be a public servant in some regard. But bottom line, it seemed interesting to me.
Just to interrupt you briefly, we're having a bunch of people join this Zoom meeting, and I would like one of them to speak up why they're here, because normally we don't have this many people, and there's lots of people in the waiting room. Okay,
We're being bombed.
we're being bombed. Oh,
my
so
God.
shut us down. Shut down the whole thing. We'll get back to you in a minute. Okay, I had a feeling.
Congratulations, you did it.
Right?
Back in the day. That hasn't happened in a long time.
That's happened before?
That's how I feel.
Okay, so let's sign back on.
You just go back to start for the board meeting.
Now for our regularly scheduled program.
Right.
So, start here?
No, one down. There you go. Now start.
More than you bargained for.
Okay, yeah, all right. So, and if it starts again, we can start maybe,
Start with everyone. You can require.
So how do we stop that until that happens yet? Is there something that I can do through the Zoom, like the administrative pieces, and where we pay?
That's a really great question. Oops, I don't want to share. I wanted these people.
Ask Peter Hood and Bill Callahan if that ever happened back in the old days.
There we go.
okay. So don't let in anyone we don't know except for that Zoom user,
There we
which
go.
is interesting that he was identified only as a Zoom user. So you can let him in.
I'm
and don't
trying,
let
it
anyone
doesn't-
else. Oh, interesting.
There we go.
Okay. Cancel.
How do you know it's an okay person? Until
Well, because he was Zoom user.
He was Zoom user
So,
before.
I guess
don't
we're just
let
not
that
going to
other
let anybody
person
else in.
Yeah.
What about the guy that
Wait, but is he here? Are you here, Sean?
Yeah, it's Sean. I'm not sure why the camera's not working.
Okay, yeah, we just got bombed by a bunch of horrible things.
Yes, that was an interesting.
Oh, did you see it? Okay. All right, and we still have another person in the waiting room. I don't know why this is happening. Okay, so we're not going
That
to let
was one of the
anyone in.
names that was in there
No, we're not
before.
going to let
Yeah,
anybody
don't
else
let anyone
in.
in. Okay. So we now have Sean back, and I'm really sorry about that. That's embarrassing. But let it not be a reflection of the town of Middlesex.
Of the IT department.
The IT department, exactly. Okay, so thank you for your interest, Sean. Does the board have any questions for Sean?
I do, Sean. I don't think I've ever formally met you, but I'm assuming you would have, obviously, the time and within I'm assuming everybody ideally would meet at a certain time would be the preference. What are those times that, during the week that you guys meet?
Somebody needs us.
Okay.
Why don't you and Sam come up if you
Since
want?
you're-
Yeah, since you're the actual, so that
Probably
if you
gonna have
want, if you have questions or he has questions or you.
Stand behind you. Or
Yeah, you can put, here's a chair. Grab another chair.
So these are our two current listers.
Okay.
I want to eat her blueberry yogurt pretzels.
So this is Sam and Shelley, and so it's a three-lister position, right? I mean, it's an elected position, which means that you would be filling the remaining term of the former lister up until town meeting day. And then if you liked the job, you would run for the remaining term if there still was time on that. I don't remember what that
I
term
think
was.
it's 1 year.
It's just 1 year?
left, yeah, and then
Oh,
it's a
1 year.
3-year
that's
term.
left. Okay, so 1 year after this?
Correct.
Okay, so then you would run for one of the remaining year of a 3-year term. And I think, maybe you guys can explain a little bit about how 3 people work together as listers, like, because I don't
Yeah.
personally understand how that works.
Okay, they're staggered, so like if you run next year, and then the following year Sam will be running, and I just barely got reelected for 3 years. And if you work for as long as you have, I worked for the government before I retired, there's a lot of training involved, but you've
Yes,
probably been through that before. Right now, we're kind of mirroring Vermont Pi and the Microsoft system, which is NEMRIC. And so
Yeah.
we're running both systems at the same time because they're trying to transition to VT5, which they've been trying to do for about 5 years when I first came on.
Yeah, I was sent, Ms. Sharp sent me a bunch of links, and I did look at the site, and I read the handbook, and I think I have a basic understanding of your situation with the transition and the reappraisal and whatnot.
There's a lot of training available, which I would
Yeah.
suggest you take, and I think as of next year, according to PVR, which is property valuation, it's going to be mandatory.
Yep.
So your lister and your assessor is almost identical, except an assessor is hired and the lister is voted. Otherwise, it's almost the same type job description.
Right.
After 3 years, I can't say I'm even seasoned, except I know what questions to ask. But there's a lot of training available. It's a great opportunity to get to know the residents. We're all equal. I'm not Sam's boss, I'm not your boss, but we work together to do what's best for the town and the residents.
And I guess that's
I'm used to working as a team.
Right.
Correct.
That's my question. Like, how do you, as a 3-member team, like, work? Like, how do you divide up the duties for, like, say, a property?
Right, because they're sharing an email address even.
Yeah, everything is shared. What we've done recently, Samantha's the youngest, and she's very good at computers, and I've been retired 12 years. So she's doing a lot of like the homesteads, HS 122s, current use. You still want to know how to do it, and if it's something that you're interested in. So I'm really good at problem solving, looking at properties and trying to figure out and work with the residents. So we each have our own piece, but we need to know all of it. So if I wasn't in, Sam could take over. If she wasn't in, you could take over. But again, we work together on what works best for all 3 of us.
Is there a part that is open at right now, so to speak? What was the third
There's
part?
always. Right now, it's busy because this is our sort of our end of year. June 4th, we do the rollover for the grand list before our taxes come out in August. And so you're coming on at a good time. You better sit through grievances. We just got done permits. As permits, the state would like all 3 to work together because no one should go alone, which most of the time it was 2 of us. But every year we go through all the permits. We're going through a townwide reappraisal starting in June. So we will still be doing permits except for anything extra. Right now, I think will be put on the appraisers that are doing our townwide reappraisal. They will take care of the grievances for those. Everything else we take care of as far as grievance notices, and even for like current use. we do the grievance notices, and we sit down with the resident and find out why they're grieving, try to explain to them their cost sheet or lister sheet, and try to come up with an agreement. If not, then they can take it to the Board of Civil Authority and go to court, which we've done. Luckily, so far since we started, I don't think that's happened where we've lost, because we try to be very consistent across the board and treat everybody as equal.
Yeah, that was one of the major concerns in my unit, was a fair and consistent approach to every situation. That was the bottom line goal of the work, was fair and consistent. So that's very.
But coming right on, if you decide, or if they decide to hire you, there's training available right from the get-go. They've already done the seasoned and the beginner lister training was in April, but it's on a webinar on the state website. Same with current use, same with homesteads. There's been probably 10 training already this year for listers.
Well, as a state employee, they love training.
You're right.
A lot of training.
Yeah.
And you get to do the ethics training for the municipal side too. That's another training that's now required. So board, do you have any questions besides Paul you were asking about? So I guess the plan, especially if he's new, you would probably plan to like meet with him.
Right. Did you want to ask him anything? I'm kind of.
No, I don't have any questions. I would just say I'm very new. So I feel like the process that I've taken and that would probably make sense with new people is kind of just work together. So in my opinion, we all work together until we know like that task, that specific task, what we're doing. And then we can kind of like shift out. If one person wants to do one thing, we can kind of just figure that out. There are certain things we should all do together, like permits, grievances. Some things I do think we should all do together, but training and getting up to speed, I think, is one of them.
Okay. And then as for the reappraisal, I imagine that you hire someone to either do that or assist you, right?
We already have.
As I understand it, you would assist them.
Right. Well, we're going to probably try to mirror them or go out with them just to see if, because things are going to change. They're changing all the time. Ever since I've started, I think every year something changes, either with VT5 or with the grand list. So we will try to, one of us go with them at some point and kind of see what they're doing, because I've heard the laws changing also. Where we used to go inside the houses, they're talking about now feet on the ground on the outside.
Are you talking about the townwide state or the townwide
I'm
appraisal?
talking about all permits. They're talking about changing the laws. Yeah. So
Because we're about to do a townwide appraisal this year and next year.
Right.
When
We've
did we
already
start
hired
with
somebody.
that? When do we start that?
June.
So that is not, these guys are not going to be doing the townwide appraisal.
Right.
We've hired
someone, so we're going to try to go with them on a couple of the trips to see what they're doing.
Because we need to carry on their process.
Right.
So we need to work with them on how we appraise things and be consistent after they're done. We need to understand basically how they're appraising, and we need to kind of tell them how we've been doing things. So we're going to need to work with them, and we got to see kind of what they're doing so we can carry it on after.
Right.
Gotcha.
Okay, so what percentage of, I think it was like 900 properties, right? And what percentage will you try to review?
They're gonna review every property.
But how many will you go on? How many of them
Just a handful. Just a handful. Right now, we're doing a lot of the work for them in advance, like borderline properties, contiguous properties. We're trying to make sure the grand list is accurate as we can before they start, so it makes it easier on them.
And saves the town.
I was going to say.
And we may be, I'm going to ask this as a point of clarification, because I just did that training, that BCA training, and I was a little confused when I started it. I was like, oh, okay, so like right now you are sending letters out, or you will be sending letters out to people who, for whatever reason, have had a change in their appraisal, because maybe they had an addition added on or
That's
something like
June
that.
4th.
Yeah, that's happening June 4th.
Yeah.
And so there's a certain percentage of people who are getting this letter because something has changed in their appraisal.
Say they
This
had
is
a
not the
permit.
townwide
Yeah.
appraisal. This
Right.
is just your regular,
Yeah.
like, I've done something different to my property. So that process too could be potentially a little busy if you've sent out, if there's been a lot of changes and you've sent out letters.
Right.
And people come to you and say, I don't agree with this.
Yep.
Right.
So, looking at the town report, and I don't want to take over the select board meeting here. Whatever you guys want me to be done, we can stop. But I was curious about the very large jump number in hours that are projected. I think it was 200 hours was projected for last year, but 600 for this year and next year. I assume it's the reappraisal, but I'm wondering what is the 400 hours?
Well, when I first came on, I committed to 4 hours a week. But what I'm finding is that things have changed over the years where we've been making corrections before the townwide reappraisal. And I won't get too deep into it because nobody will understand here, but there were some things that were done differently before the systems were automated, such as land being captured in different areas. And that's one of the things we're working on right now for the townwide reappraisers, because they wouldn't see, because they weren't tied as contiguous. Like if you have 3 acres and each acre is a different site, we tie them together for tax laws for one tax bill.
Yeah.
Some of that wasn't being done, so we've been working on reports. I found it last year before the end of the year and talked to the State of Vermont Tax Department and our district advisor, and he said to start working on it this year, and we've been diligently trying to correct everything that might not have been done automated as it should have been in the past. So hopefully it would not be that many hours going forward after everything gets,
4 hours
uneven.
a week is really not a lot. Especially if you're new and you're learning, then you take in the training hours too.
Yeah.
4 hours a week is really not a lot. So I feel like, in my opinion, you guys shot pretty low, going based off from what you had heard.
Yeah.
How many hours are in it now for the whole thing, for the 3 people?
I don't remember.
What did you say?
600.
200 almost?
Yeah.
No, it went from 200 to 600
Okay, so
Yeah.
200 hours.
per person.
Yeah.
Which was based on like 4 hours a week.
4 hours a week.
Yeah, right.
And that's what I was
52
told when
times
I
4,
came on
yeah.
as a new lister, was 4 hours a week, and so that's what we committed. And then talking to the old treasurer, that's what we had thought it should be, but we didn't know any different until last year when we went out and did permits, and it took us 40 hours in 1 week just to do permits.
Correct.
Yeah.
So this is basically a day to a day and a half a week.
It could be. It could be. I think it varies.
It really varies.
Yeah.
It really varies on like phone calls, emails, like it varies on what's happening.
All right.
Okay.
And the other thing, there usually is a lister in-house for at least 4 hours, which we're trying to get to. It'd be nice to have somebody here when zoning is here, except I don't want to charge the town for nothing. So, I mean, as soon as things get caught up or we could do something while we're here, one of us will be here. So at least we're here 1 day a week, so that if residents want or need us, they can walk right in.
My last question would be, most of the work I imagine would be remote then?
Yeah, well, we've been,
Office hours or not?
no.
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, you have your vault here, we have our files here, we have our email here.
Right.
Like there's some stuff we can do remote. We just got the cloud with Nemrick, so we can log on from home. But a lot of it is here.
Yeah. For every sale, you've got to read the deed. I mean, there's deed classes for training.
And some of it's online, like you
Yeah.
can find deeds and some stuff
But the
online,
older
but not
stuff you can't.
So
everything.
hybrid.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So, in the interest of time, because we're 5 minutes over our agenda, are there any other last-minute questions from the board? Now, Sean, is this something you want to think about? You want to sleep on? Because we could vote now, or we could wait for a meeting to vote, but we have to vote in public. And we can't
Whatever is
discuss it
comfortable.
outside anyway.
I'm prepared, if you want to vote.
Okay.
Yes or no would be fine with me.
Okay. So, do you think that, board, are we prepared to vote? Okay, so is there a motion?
I'd make a motion to accept Sean to the third position of lister, if that
Okay.
works for you guys. Awesome.
Alrighty,
And I
and
would
is there a
second.
second? Okay, and Paul seconds. All right, any, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, well, welcome. Welcome to Let's start.
You got a part-time job, Sean.
So I guess Shelley.
Let's start.
Yeah. So Shelley.
Reach out and we can sit
Yeah.
down whenever. I know you're still working, but reach out when there's a good time for
Why don't
you.
we'll give you guys his email address and let you
Yeah,
guys
yeah.
reach out. Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Great. All right.
Thanks for
Thank you
your
so
time
very
much. Okay. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome to stay if you want to hear the rest of the select board stuff.
All righty. Okay, so now we're on to the highway report. So there's a bunch of stuff here. And it is the highway report and FEMA roadwork update from Eric and Zara. Update on the state of deteriorating Old Brook Road and also it sounds like maybe regular Brook Road. There's some problems since the last rain. Possible FEMA funding for Old Brook Road. Update on what's happening with the Dirt Tech box culverts. Update on the new truck order. That was related to the conversation I had with you in the shed about the long-term schedule for that. And then the amendment to the agenda was a letter of intent to participate in the state fiscal year 26 municipal roads grants in aid program, plus this driveway permit.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
So,
As far as Old Brook Road is concerned, still waiting on the engineer to get back on method of repair for that. I talked to him today, hoping to get some more information back by the end of the week.
on Old Brook Road?
Yep.
Okay.
On Brook Road, around 126 and 172, we're starting to get some sliding into the brook off of the edge of the road.
Isn't that where you just replaced the culvert?
Just above where I replaced the culvert in one spot, the other spot is down a little bit. I think, Paul, that's the area where Du Bois repaired years back. It's right next to that.
Where the granite is.
Yeah, where the granite is. And then also on Center Road, I didn't write it down, but on Center Road across from 138, there's some sliding off that too, right by that culvert.
Are these projects within your wheelhouse, Eric, or are
The
these
Center
ones that
Road
we-
one, definitely.
Okay.
Possibly for the others, because it doesn't look like it's terribly far down.
Okay.
Yep.
I think we have to get Sherry from FEMA, from Hazard Mitigation, to come out here and take a look at Brook and Center, don't you?
Yeah, we can have her look. Yeah.
Who's Sherry? Your
She's the
relationship
hazard
manager?
person.
Oh, no, the hazard person.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, let's see, last week we repaired that culvert on Brook Road and repaired the access to Carr Cemetery.
Okay.
There was a washout down there.
That was the culvert that was not budgeted for anything. Okay.
Well, we had one, so it was good.
Yeah, good, okay.
Eric, do you anticipate having more of these pop-up things? Yeah, and I kind of do too, and it's something I've been thinking about after last weekend's rain. Kind of just reserving what we've got for resources and monies, which we may not have any.
We have nothing to reserve.
We don't have any right now.
Right. So, because again, I was of the same opinion that I think we're still going to see the cracks and things that haven't reared their heads yet. So I'm inclined to just have the road crew more of like a standby maintenance and this like punch list type of
Yeah,
stuff
I
this
think
year.
that's what we're gonna have to do
Yeah.
all summer long.
Well, we also had conversations around, well, I've had conversations like with outside people out, like in the state and stuff, that, municipalities in general need to start building up capital reserves
Yes.
for road repairs.
And we
so-
were talking about that in the
Yeah,
budget
okay, good.
committee just earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking at a minimum, $100,000 a year is what we have to put into our budget. Because otherwise, there's no guarantee that anything's ever going to get paid for again by FEMA. And so you guys talked about that for
We did talk about it.
our next budget season, is adding that because we have to have it. We have to have it extra money.
And it doesn't go $100,000.
It goes nowhere,
Doesn't
right?
go far.
It doesn't go anywhere, right?
Let's be
No, it
honest.
does not.
Yeah.
And, maybe it's a higher number, right? I mean, and it's because eventually we're gonna need money that is not gonna be given to us. And we have to be able to, at the very least, get people out of their homes. right?
Yeah, and the road crew is a huge asset to us that I think we need to be able to utilize to the best of our ability. And in the same regard, make sure that whatever we do works towards the positive, obviously. So if we can utilize them, the town is in great shape, quote unquote, relatively, after all the work we've done. Having them available for this type of stuff and not having to hire out what we can is, huge. We're in a pretty fragile financial point at this time.
So Eric and I had a larger meeting with FEMA than normal last week about hazard mitigation. Old Brook Road, even though normally disasters, you have about 60 days to declare, they see that obviously what happened on Old Brook Road does have to do with the 4810 event, and therefore they have said that they will cover our repairs there.
Wow.
So it's now, we're figuring out numbers for that. Yeah, so that's great. I asked them as well about across the way, because obviously we're seeing all sorts of debris and landslides and trees that are just kind of coming right down. They're not going to help us with that.
Not that isn't anything that's going to impede the roadway, they won't touch.
Right.
So if it's on someone else's property, that's.
Or across the river, because it's
Right.
not what we're driving on. There,
Right.
even
It actually has to affect the roadway.
yeah. So, which is happening now, so we're gonna have to, we've got our PDMG is on vacation this week. We have somebody filling in who was asking a lot of questions that made no sense today in the state, and we agreed that we're just gonna wait for Monique to come back next week.
Before something gets messed up.
Yeah, because,
Okay.
yeah, thank you, but we can wait a week for the right
And remind the board what's happening with the latest FEMA money that we've apparently been allocated, 2-point-something.
2.8.
I am in the process of reviewing those reports and get them signed and sent back
Okay.
to them.
How long do you think that will take?
Hopefully in the next day or two, but having a select board meeting in May 20th tax payments is a little trying this
okay.
week.
I guess I just worry that it could be taken away from us.
I know, I worry, I said the same thing, there better not be a deadline, Cheryl.
No,
Don't
what-
make me start from scratch.
Actually, someone told me that once it's obligated and we have those
Yeah.
reports, it's just a matter of making sure that we jive and
Taking the
the
money.
money's ours.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. And so that is 2.8.
Yeah, so the numbers haven't really changed. There's still 1.3 left. We do have a new PDMG for 4720. He understands where it was left off. One of those major roads was a costing issue where we had punted it to FEMA versus doing an RFP process, and and that was supposed to expedite things, but the ball got dropped at FEMA. So the ball's been picked up by FEMA again. That last 71,000 from that other road that was released, all of that is in play, and we're about halfway through getting all of the information to Monique, 4810.
Okay.
Again, holding up this week because this guy who was filling in.
I don't think we need to have information lost, so we have to redo it.
Exactly, so,
Because that's been the name of the game if we give it to the wrong person.
yeah. So by the mid next week when she comes back, she should have the information for all of the roads. We got the staging thing that was holding us up, punted to FEMA, they figured out a solution, so there's really no reason not to fly now.
Is Notch Road, someone from Notch Road was mentioning that there was something around, a repair that hadn't gotten done for 47?
Yeah, so that's a conversation we need to have. I know Paul had brought it up and somebody brought it up at the meeting. Dirt Tech was in the process of doing what we had bidded for them to do for 4720 when they got pulled away to 4810. So we need to figure out what didn't get done.
That's what they're working on.
They've been
Yeah.
working on it.
Yeah.
But I believe we've gotten prepaid. That's all been part of the 4720 numbers that we've been giving
I
them.
believe so.
So
But we
it's,
still have to do the repairs.
we have to
Yeah.
do repairs. But at least it's like,
So we still have to pay
Prepaid.
people. We still have to pay Dirt Tech for that.
Yeah, they hadn't done the work yet.
Yes, Shelley?
I've had a couple neighbors stop and talk to me about, I guess they had talked to Dirt Tech and I guess gonna stop at Sid's house or the house down below us.
Where the box
Because that's what
culvert
got
would be.
bidded
Yeah.
on for Dirt Tech. And that's where it's gonna end. So I don't know if we're gonna have our crew
Yeah,
after that, or if they're gonna go out for bid because of the 2024 flood?
So they're gonna finish up with the box culvert right there.
Which road?
On Notch Road.
Okay, yeah.
That'll be all under the 4720.
Yep, and was prepaid.
Yeah, everything above that will be 4810, and that has to go out to bid.
That goes out then, okay,
Yeah.
but it's not that it isn't gonna be done.
No, it'll be done this summer. It'll be,
Yeah.
we have to do it. I mean,
We had some RFP, we were ready with RFPs like last fall or the winter, but because of our money situation, we couldn't actually then have people bidding and quoting because we didn't have the money to pay them. So we kind of ran into a roadblock, but with money being released now from FEMA and the new bond
Now we
stuff.
can start-
Also, keep in mind that when we hit that 50%, when we've received everything for 50%, we have to give the money back to the Vermont Bond Bank for that initial loan.
Right.
Yeah.
We're just trying
So we
to do
can
it so
borrow
we
it
can
again.
afford it.
Right?
And the only other, I just want to make sure it's on the table, so we're waiting for a report back for Old Brook Road, just because I know we'll have concerned folks on that
Of
road.
course.
And then at that point, we'll be able to put together an RFP,
Yep.
get it out there and
Get it.
expedite.
And give the number to FEMA
Right.
so that when they pay us for that road,
Right.
it's that money is
So
part
Notch
of it.
Road will get repaired.
And
It's flooded.
and just so everybody knows, the engineer that we're working with it's Dexter Lefebvre, who's part of the road committee, and he's been really
Yeah.
great, right, at answering your texts
Oh,
and
yeah.
kind of
No,
coming
no,
out.
we've been working together on getting this stuff all done, so.
Okay, so, and the box culverts on,
I am supposed to get the information from Dexter this week so that we can get the permits issued.
for the,
For Center and Notch and.
Center and
Center Notch and South
South.
okay, great. And then could you explain to the board about the truck and the waiting list and all that?
So,
And our schedule for the truck?
So with ordering trucks, the trucks themselves don't take long. We could have a truck, if we ordered it today, to be here by fall. The problem we run into is having a body put on. Tenco and Viking both are 18 to 24 months out.
Okay. So that is,
That means we run what we have.
Well, it means
but
we
we have
order
to
right
pay
away.
for something.
So yes, so the fact that the dealer has to sit on the truck for 18 to 24 months before the truck is complete, they can't do a package deal. They pay for the truck, and then when the body and everything is complete, then we pay for that.
So the question is that in this year's budget or next year, fiscal year 26 budget, this truck?
No, it's this.
It's not in the budget at all. What happens is.
It's in the CIP.
Yes, in the CIP, but there was only 50,000 from the year before. We put 50,000 in this year. It's going to bring us to 100,000 plus $362 in interest. So, but you don't have to have that money right now. So there'll be, hopefully for the fiscal year 2026, we'll be able to put another $50,000 that's allocated, so there'll be 150,000 set aside and pushed over
But
to
isn't
the money market.
Isn't there two vehicles?
Well, I would say we probably want to order both of them because as long as it's going to take, we're going to be behind the 8 ball that
Right.
much further.
But hold on. The CIP budget for trucks, we're putting in, we're not setting aside money for trucks.
Yes, we are.
Yes.
I thought we were setting money aside to,
Asset Equipment Fund is what it's called.
yeah, the asset equipment fund, but that's more like I thought that was to buy down some of the debt before we bought the truck.
Right. Yeah,
Well,
we're going to have to borrow the money.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll have to talk to Mark, but I think the asset equipment fund is different than these specific trucks.
I think it is too. That's what I'm saying. I
It
think
is.
these two trucks are their own
They are.
budget line item.
No,
that-
there's no budget line item for the trucks.
There is on the capital, on the CIP.
Let's look at our, I don't have my thing on.
And I tried to look up the CIP before the fair, and it's not
Okay.
online.
Does anyone have their town
Oh.
report? It's saying the town report. For the budget that we just passed is for fiscal year 26, starting July 1.
Yeah, here, we'll hand this to you.
Yeah, and then,
She'll find it better.
I mean, we don't have to decide today, but, and I don't want to like hold up the meeting for too much longer, but.
Will the equipment manufacturer honor their price with steel and all, with tariffs and stuff like that, like Tenco or
That's what I've been
Fairfield?
told.
Okay.
I haven't
So we
seen
could at
anything
least,
in writing.
we could at least get something in writing
Yeah.
and hold them, accountable. That's a long ways away.
You know, what they've been running into in the past, dealers were just sitting on the truck for that long, but they have to pay the interest on that truck until
Right.
we buy the whole thing.
Yeah.
Said, there's, and I don't blame them, I wouldn't want to pay it either.
Yeah.
And the taxes.
But I used to think 6 months was a long time.
It's 2 years for a fire truck.
Yeah.
Montpelier is ordering a new ladder truck and it's 4 years out.
Okay, engines are 2 years.
Just throwing that out there.
It's not. It's not in the fiscal year 26 budget.
I think it was
No.
last year's.
It's not, it wasn't in last year's. We don't set aside money to buy capital purchases. It's always
So
set aside
if
in that
it's-
CIP budget.
If it's 24, 25, there's nothing here either. So what are you replacing?
Well, we have to replace the International and then the Freightliner is next.
The 2018 International
Yep,
and then the 2019 Freightliner?
yep.
Okay, so in the budget, yeah, so the 2018 International, is not in the Public Works debt service. And if you go to the highway equipment and vehicle purchase,
It was supposed to be replaced this year.
Yeah, I think you're looking at the wrong, I think it would have been in last year's book. To be bought as of July this year, right? Because we set the.
yeah, but last year's book would be in here because it has it. It has actual
July would be
budget.
considered fiscal year 26. So I'd be
It has
looking at
fiscal
that.
year 24, 25, it says July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. And there's nothing for anything under Public Works debt service. Because we've already paid off the 2018, it looks like.
Yes, we have.
And so, but in the highway fund, the CIP highway, there's nothing for heavy equipment.
What's going to make this really tough is the way that we're.
Why isn't there anything for heavy equipment? There's nothing, not even 50,000.
The 50,000 is in, what happens is you guys decide to set money aside for the CIP money.
Yeah.
Which is a bridge fund, the building fund, town hall fund,
Well, there's the
resurfacing
asset
fund.
equipment fund, 50,000.
Right, and that's where we put the
Yes.
50,000.
Okay, so that's where we put the 50,000.
That's where we've always put the 50,000. The
Okay.
first year that we put it there, it wasn't part of the budget at all, and you guys did a special article for that. We moved that 50,000 in there. That was for
So we have
fiscal year
150.
2024. No, there's not 150 yet. But I have to move the money in there for this fiscal year for
Yeah.
2025, and that'll be 50,000. And then
For 26, it'll be
in
50,000.
2026, there'll be another.
Okay, and so it'll be another
50,000.
50. But I think that, I feel like, now maybe, I don't want to speak to like that this is actually true because I don't remember. But I think that we did not budget for the replacement of the 2018. And that this 50,000 asset equipment fund was meant to like take some of that to buy down for, are you saying no? Like
I'm
this-
saying I disagree with that. I don't think that's right from me sitting on the budget committee.
Okay, so you think that this is for any trucks that we need to buy?
Asset equipment fund, I don't even know that if it's for, I think it's for equipment. I don't think it's for trucks. I think vehicles is a whole different thing.
Right, so my point is, we don't have a vehicle budgeted if that's the case.
Well, if you look, I don't know. I just texted Mark. I wish he had zipped on here. Maybe we can
Maybe he
table
can.
this for our next.
Yeah, let's table it for the next
June.
meeting. But at any
have
rate,
him
we're going to
come
have
in.
to come up with something when? Fiscal year 26?
Yes.
Okay,
And when I talked to
So,
Mark downstairs.
do you see the sheet right in front of you?
We were on the same page.
yes.
And I think what we've got to really be careful with is the proverbial can that's going to get kicked because of this backlog. Like, just because our plan says X doesn't mean that the actual is going to follow through with that. So
that's
like you said,
not in the
we just
budget.
have to look
According
at
to
the
Mark,
next
this is
truck.
all put together by Mark, so.
Okay, this is not in the, I shouldn't say it's not in the budget, it's not in the highway trucks section. It is, if it is, it's in that 50,000 equipment asset, which I thought was meant for something else, but,
I did too.
okay.
And Mark and
So-
I had this conversation downstairs before he had the meeting up here.
Yeah.
So, and he agreed with what I was saying. I said, there's no money that's set aside for the truck. That's in the, we've been putting 50,000 in the asset.
He agrees
equipment
that
and
there's no
asset,
money
and-
set aside for
Right,
the
he
truck.
agreed with that. He knew that.
Okay, so we can all agree that there's no money set aside for the truck, but what we can budget for, we can use the 50,000 that we're gonna need from our asset fund that we've already saved, which we will have in total 150 once we draw down fiscal year 26 funds. But when we're budgeting in fiscal year 26, we're gonna have to budget for that. I think it's okay. I think it's okay. All right, next is,
I mean, 2027, when we're budgeting
yeah,
for
and when we budget in
2027.
2027, yeah. Okay, next is the letter to participate in the state fiscal year 26 municipal roads grant and aid program. Is that this right here? Do we need to make a motion for that?
I think you just need to sign it.
Okay,
We do it every year.
all right. Okay,
What
so
is the award amount, Eric? If
I'm just gonna sign it, we're not gonna make a motion?
15,000.
No,
I think
I think we can all agree we want free money.
Yes. Unanimous.
Okay, and then this driveway permit, does it all look good to you for Dennis
Yeah.
Hill?
Yeah, it's
Okay,
going down in the field there.
yep. Okay, and is there a motion to approve Dennis Hill's driveway permit for Culver Hill Road?
You're good with culvert.
I'll make the
You know,
motion.
culvert's on the down.
Yeah, it's all on the downhill.
Standard B 71, no culvert needed.
Yep.
Okay, all those in, or is there a motion? Okay, Zara moved, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Paul second, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, is this something we all sign or just me? I think it's just
Just you.
Okay. Alrighty, so now it is, we're a little bit late, I'm sorry, fire department. Could you please tell us how you're doing?
Sure, we're doing really well. We're up to 27 calls, 6 this period, which that's running about average. 1 mutual aid out, 1 mutual aid in. The interesting thing is the numbers, where max is 10, min is up to 4, and our average jumped 1 percentage point to 6.7 per call.
Nice.
That's phenomenal.
Yes, that's great.
Engine 1 out 6 times and 6 wasn't out. Had a battery issue. Tanker 1 was out once, rescue out twice, truck 14 not out, and then 3 POV responses. So Dolan Road, we had a structure fire. We had a host of folks in. Montpelier Fire, Worcester, and Moortown, along with our engine, tanker, and rescue. Down power line along Route 12. Picard Lane was a lift assist. Poor Road, we had a smoke alarm activation. It was a false alarm. It is now a rental property, and the people there didn't know anything about it. I'd love to have renters be required to put down what their alarm systems are and how to replace batteries and stuff, but we can't mandate that. Engine 1 was responded, and then we turned them off because we figured out it was a false alarm. We got called out to Moortown up on Misty Hilltop for a malfunctioning oven. We were canceled by Moortown before we could arrive on scene. Then on Molly Supple on Friday, there was a car versus motorcycle.
Oh, no.
No transport for anyone.
That's
So it was
Very fortunate.
a lucky thing. Fast squad, we had a total of 13, with 12 of them being medical calls. Training, this month we did car extrication, so we got to tear apart 3 cars with various tools. Gives us great opportunity to do that, not up on the interstate, and get used to doing it. So it was a really good time. Repairs, we haven't had any. Purchases, we're getting new FEMA specified hoods for everybody on the department, and we're getting a couple extra just in case. These are good for 10 years. It's to keep the cancer agents away from our folks.
Good.
So they're a little pricey, but it's
Worth it.
Were they in your budget? They were, weren't they?
they're coming out of our budget. We didn't.
Yeah. They're in your orders today, right?
Yeah.
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 And 2 sets of extrication gear. As we get new people,
Yeah.
we get new gear. The big thing is that I want to point out is that 4 members of our department have completed the Firefighter 1 course. That's an 8-month-long course.
Wow.
They do not get paid to go to that. The course gets paid for,
Yeah.
and it doesn't come out of our pockets. Well, it comes out of our taxpayer pockets, but and they go to that usually twice a week.
Yeah, twice a week.
8 months, and they do it voluntarily.
That's
It's a
awesome.
huge commitment. And so we have 4 more folks that are firefighter 1 qualified. They could actually go to any fire department with that certification.
That's great.
That's
Congratulations.
awesome.
Yeah, huge.
The other big thing, so those names are Tyler Carroll, Stephen Peck, Sam Worcester, who actually lives in the village here, and Lance Toby.
Nice. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
So the other big thing is 5 of our members are taking the EMT class,
That's great.
which again is the district got state grants for, so it's not coming out of our budget, which is a $1,400 pop per person. So we have 5
That's
people
amazing.
in that. Everybody graduates, that'll bring us up to 7 EMTs. We've never had that many.
That's
Yeah.
great.
That's awesome.
So
Congratulations.
Yeah.
you can see the changes. We're starting to get younger people on the department. We're really, thanks to your backing and supporting the equipment we need, that's showing to people that this is a great department to join. So thank you for your support. And we
Thank you,
continue to-
guys.
Yeah,
Thank you
Yeah.
for creating even more heroes in this town.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
And you cleared up the registration dates and stuff. That's
Yep.
okay. They're fire trucks are-
Your vehicles are registered till 2029,
Outstanding.
right? You are good to
Before we
go.
get off the budget thing, Mark texted me back.
Yeah, they're
Cheryl's
sending me the new
100%
ones.
correct.
They
The
said
cost
they
of
did
trucks
send them, but
are
apparently
included in the
they haven't, so
asset
they're sending me
equipment
new
fund,
ones, so
as
you
are
won't have
all
to know.
public works and
need
fire
insurance.
large ticket items. That's why you don't find them separate in the CIP section of the budget. You can have that.
Okay. So, we'll take money from there for the fiscal year 2026 first loan payment of 40,000 or 48,000, whatever it's gonna be. But do we need a down, you said we need a down payment?
No.
We just have to buy part of it.
We just have to order it.
We have to order it.
Yeah.
It won't
It's
come
gonna
in,
be
I
2
mean,
years.
It won't come until
we
fall.
don't pay for it until it comes
2
in.
years.
Okay.
No, it's fall, the
But-
truck will be
the truck
ready in
will
the
be
fall,
here.
which has to be paid for, but then the body and stuff doesn't have to be paid for until that comes in.
Right, you're not
Right.
buying the whole thing. You're only gonna spend, the truck itself is gonna be about $180,000.
Right, but we're still gonna need a loan for that. Are we gonna need 2 loans? Because first we buy the truck and then we have to buy
Or
the
you just
body.
get one loan for everything and then pay the other one up, I don't know.
Might have the truck paid off by the time the equipment is
Yeah,
ready
I
to
mean,
go.
it's taking.
I don't know how this works.
It's two separate builds for the truck. The
Yeah.
truck and then the equipment,
Right.
body, plows, all of that.
Yeah,
But like normally I would pay for one truck. I wouldn't pay for two parts.
Historically, it has gone different ways. If we buy it directly through the manufacturer with a truck all set up, you would
Yeah.
purchase directly. They've fronted the money for all of that stuff. I know most of the time, we've had two different prices, one for the truck
They
and one for the
fronted, meaning
supporting.
they, the company?
They, the manufacturer, like, let's say at the time would have
Yeah.
been Clark's Truck Center, they had a truck all set up.
Okay.
They've already invested the money in the plow
Okay.
equipment.
So this is different,
More of the same.
but we're responsible for the first part of it.
So what's different is typically, it wouldn't take as long to get the bodies.
Right.
So you would buy the whole thing at once.
Yeah.
Right.
But now that the dealer has to hold that truck
Right.
that they just ordered for you for over a year,
Yeah,
they're like, well, we have to pay for that.
right. So you understand what I'm saying, though? We might have two loans on one truck. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm
Okay.
hoping by the time the truck gets here, more FEMA will be here too.
It's like, so we're gonna have the first loan for the body, and then we're gonna have to get a second loan, or the first loan for the truck and a second loan for the body.
Correct.
Okay, all right, and
Or
that's
take
not.
one loan up, right up front for the whole entire
You
truck.
take a loan for the whole price and then just pay what you pay and then.
Yeah, but we're prepaying them for something we don't have.
Not if you, no. If you pay for just the truck portion of it and
Yeah.
hold on to the rest of the money.
I don't think that's how loans work.
Why not?
Well, maybe different for a town.
I don't know.
We've been in trouble before for
Okay.
buying gravel at a discounted price. and
Okay,
we've-
all right, well, let's move on. Okay, is there any questions for the fire department or any other news for the fire department?
No, that's great, guys.
Okay, yeah, you guys, thank you so much, that's
awesome.
great. Look, we're right on schedule for Mitch and then Hannah. So Mitch, you're coming to us with some bids for mowing and taking care of the rec field. And,
We didn't have a packet. We've just got one
Just the one.
copy. So
no, everybody gets one.
All right, Eric.
Right here. Right here, everybody gets one.
I got it summarized.
Okay,
is how you spell his last name.
I think there's my bids right there.
Short and sweet.
Oh, beautiful.
Short and sweet.
I knew it.
Did you get one of these? Nope. Oh,
Okay, so we got two bids.
Correct.
And the bids are
Thank you.
from, you'll see here, one is Chris Herring, and one is C. Michaud Landscape and Lawn Care, right?
Correct.
Is that right? Okay.
I'm just going to sit here.
And bid one is Chris
Bid one
Herring?
is Chris Herring, and bid two is Corey Machad.
Okay, thanks for,
okay. These are real.
okay, so,
Who has done this in the past, Mitch?
Corey's been doing it for the last several years.
Any issues?
Not personally that I'm aware of, and I try to check in with especially the soccer coaches and the baseball coaches to see, and the bandstand committee to see if they've got issues.
And Corey, is bid number one or bid number two?
2.
okay, let's just make sure in our budget, can we look at our budget of the rec department? I hate going through this budget and trying to find where everything is.
You're gonna get real familiar before too long.
Public, no, recreation. Okay, so for mowing, we have a budget of, okay, but this says town BOR mowing, brush hog, aerating. And then there's also recreation supplies, seed, soil, fertilizer. Is that different? That
Yes.
doesn't- That's not included in these guys.
No.
So our budget is $5,050. So if we were to go with the cheaper person, we'd have to cut back on a mowing because we don't have $6,000 in the budget for mowing. We only have $5,000.
Just so you know, the town hall.
Oh, wait a minute. No, I'm wrong. We have the Walter Kelly Park mowing in Port Alette for an extra $3,000.
And the town hall mowing comes out of our budget for the administrative cost of that, so that's a whole different line item.
Wait a minute.
It's under,
maybe it
but it's bunched into our janitorial stuff for the
Okay,
town.
but this is recreation. I'm looking at the recreation budget, and it says,
But because of the way it's bid.
at the top it says town, what's BOR?
Together.
Barry Auditorium, what's the BOR?
Well, that's what I know is the,
No, I know, but town BOR, mowing, brush hog, aerating.
The BOR is up there where the gazebo is
Okay.
at the school. That's
That's
what
the
they consider the
bandstand.
BOR.
Okay,
Bandstand, that's what they call the BOR.
okay, so that's what they call the bandstand. So we have 5 for that, plus the Walter Kelly, which is included in here. Oh, and then the town hall mowing, you're saying is in a different thing.
Yeah,
So we have
it's
plenty
under our
of money in the
janitorial.
budget for, frankly, both bids.
What about this 3 Mile Bridge Road?
Almost
Where does
3.
that usually come from?
3
It gets-
mile,
It gets also lumped into the BOR, is what it is.
Okay.
yeah. So, so Chris's is actually slightly over. He comes in at just under 9,000. So these two are $8,175 is what we budgeted for Walter Kelly and the rec field. Who does the Wrightsville and like the little Shady Rail Park down there?
The Wrightsville Beach and the Shady Reel picnic area are part of the Wrightsville Beach.
Okay.
yeah.
They
that's
take care of
their-
that.
Okay.
There's not much mowing down at the Shady Road.
No,
There's nothing to
Oh,
mow right
3
now.
Mile Bridge
No.
Road brush hogging isn't in the budget, but that could be if we accepted Corey's.
And just for your information, that is 2 areas that were FEMA buyouts that
Gotcha.
we're not allowed
Oh,
to
that
develop.
makes
There's a
sense.
little parklet put in there,
Okay.
and we tend to just brush hog it once a year or so.
Just to keep it knocked down.
Yeah.
So I wonder, just for the sake of next year, we may want to include that in the rec budget. This, like, because we're going to have other FEMA buyouts too, potentially,
Yep.
that we may or may not want to do mowing on. But, so in this is not, does not include 3 Mile Bridge Road brush hogging.
I would rename it buyout brush hogging.
Yeah.
Because that number will.
Can you also make note of that for the budget committee, that
Yep.
we would want to have, does not include 3 Mile Bridge Road brush hogging and other FEMA and other buyout brush hogging?
Mitch, and do you know how long Corey has been doing the service for us? It's been a
I
few
think
years
it's been
anyways.
probably 6 years.
Yeah.
Okay,
So can I, if Corey's been doing a great job and he comes in under the budget that we have, I would like to make a motion that we give the bid to Corey, bid
And I will
number 2.
second.
alrighty, so any further discussion? Any other nominations?
I've got one talking point. I emailed both of the bidders because they submitted the bids toward the end of April. And we, due to communication mix-up, I didn't get on the agenda for the last 2 weeks ago. I haven't talked to the 2 contractors in a while. I emailed them both, one yesterday, one this morning, to confirm that they were still interested in taking the project if they were selected. Chris Herring responded, yes. I haven't heard from Corey.
Okay.
And so I'm hoping he
So
will still
these
do
have
it.
not been mowed yet.
I know, that's
That's
because,
no, I'm asking.
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
and it's in a little rough shape right now. And
Well, let's go with the assumption that Corey's going to be able to take it.
Yep.
And if he can't, I would say that if he can't, then we would offer it to Chris as a backup, but he'd have to come in budget if he wanted it.
I'm
Which
happy
would
to talk,
be-
and I think
which
he's
would
not
be-
familiar with what's being
Yeah,
done.
that's
And I
okay.
think that, for example, just his bid on mowing the town hall is pretty high, given the little
Yeah.
parcel that there, I think he just didn't know really what was
Yeah.
requested. So I expect that I could negotiate with him to say, hey, we've got to hit under this target, and
I'd like to
let's
see
do what we got to do to make that happen.
under $6,500, 65 or under. If
Yeah.
Corey came in at 62. I don't want to spend more than 6,500.
Yeah.
Well, and this is it's a bid at this point.
Right.
So
So let's just offer it to him,
To Corey.
to Corey. I mean, I would imagine that Corey is going to say yes, because he's been doing it for 6 years, and he's just, I
And
don't know.
if not, see if
Yeah.
Chris can get it down to 65.
We have
And he's not great about responding.
Yeah,
I'll
let's
give
vote
him
on the motion.
I'll give him a call and.
Okay. All right, so is there a motion to approve Corey Michaud?
Yep.
Yes.
Can I?
Oh, yeah, you did.
Can I amend the motion to
Yes.
give Mitch a little flexibility?
Sure.
So I would move to authorize the acceptment of the foregoing bids up to $6,500 with preference to the bid submitted by Corey
number
as coming in under, but up to 6,500, which is what we would deem reasonable for the total cost of services here and what we've budgeted.
Yes,
So
I would agree with
then
that.
then Mitch doesn't have to come back for
Yes.
permission to go with this if he can still negotiate a
Yep.
mowing contract within those parameters.
Okay.
Bravo.
Zara and I meant that.
Is there, okay, so with
always
those
come out like that.
amendments to the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So it was Zara who moved and Larry who seconded it.
Aye.
Or Paul seconded it, sorry. Okay, great. All righty, well, that sounds great. Thank you, Mitch.
Yes, and I've got one other real quick
Okay.
discussion item that, Liz, you suggested we could just tackle
Yep.
this without throwing it on a separate item. Several years ago, when I came on as a recreation director, Peter Hood authorized me to deal with the occasional request to use the bandstand outside of the concert series. Every now and then, people would say, hey, I want to have a rummage sale or this or that. And post-COVID, those requests dwindled to pretty much nothing. But now we're getting post-COVID a little bit out of that. I've gotten 2 requests this year to use the bandstand. One is a Ham Radio Club of Central Vermont is having a jamboree at the end of June, and they decided this would be a lovely place to have their little ham radio club gather, and they wanted to use the bandstand just sort of a shelter. I said, that sounds all right. And then I got another request last week from a woman in Calais who's wants to do a fundraiser, which is kind of vaguely defined at this moment. She thought she wanted to do something for the ACLU and or migrant justice, but she didn't know exactly what she wanted to do. And I said, I figured this might be a good time to talk to the select board and say, is this the sort of thing that you guys think needs a policy for how the bandstand might be used, or in certain circumstances, do we want to charge rent?
Yeah.
Is there power there, Mitch?
There is power, most people don't tend to use it, but I'll give you an example. 2 years ago, the school had like a fall talent show over at the bandstand, and we made a little corn roast event out of it, and all the little kids did dance skits and magic acts and all kinds of things, and we powered, we had somebody from the bandstand come over and turn on the power if we need it, but most of the time when people ask me to use the bandstand, they don't even need electricity, so it's nominal, but I thought
And
you
we don't
guys might
think
want
this
to.
should be a role for the bandstand committee? Like, there is a bandstand committee, and, I mean, I'm not saying I don't want you to have the role, but like, I wouldn't want, if you were to do this, you would want to check with the bandstand committee to make sure
Absolutely,
there
I don't
wasn't a
want
concert or
to step on
something
their,
like that.
yeah, certainly.
Right, and it might even be worth asking them to say, like, do you want to take this on, or I can take it on, for these random,
Yep.
like, oh, we want to have a little,
Yeah, the big,
sing along at the
I'd be
bandstand.
interested
The big thing
to
is
see
when
what they
the-
say, since we give them money as town.
Yeah,
So, we vote in to fund.
yeah.
I think
But we
cut it.
own the bandstand.
Yeah,
right?
not much.
Not much, but
5,000, 1,500? But you know what, listen, the idea of rent is kind of interesting, for the 2 events you mentioned, I would say they're nonprofits, and, so that's just like, yeah, go ahead, but if somebody wanted to have their wedding there, yeah,
Yeah.
let's charge them, let's,
Yeah.
we
So
could
let's
use
put
that.
that on our select board wish list.
No.
I can add that
Add to the bottom.
Add to the bottom.
How much money can
bandstand
we
use
make
policy.
renting out the bandstand?
Yeah, I mean, especially if there's electricity.
the electricity is my big thing. I love
And
the idea of it
mowing,
being
right? Like we mow it
utilized.
to keep it nice
Yeah.
and stuff, so, okay.
It's a great spot to see
Yeah.
being used.
Yeah. Okay.
and I don't, I don't have any particular desire to do this, but, you know, if the bandstand wants to take it over, that's fine with me. But the big challenge is when the town hall gets a phone call, they got to know who to refer it to.
Exactly, yes. So I would reach out to do you know who's in charge of the bandstand? It's that man, I don't know his name.
Somebody,
Probably in the book.
somebody just posted on Front Porch Forum the other day, so it's,
Paul Boffa. Oh, yeah, Paul Boffa.
yeah, I talked to Paul in the past, and I think maybe Gretchen Muscuri or somebody like
Yeah,
that.
here's his number.
Okay.
Paul Bofa.
Bofa, yep.
Yeah, I mean, I would almost say they should be the ones to
Yeah.
rent it out or whatever.
Maybe they can make a little bit more money to,
Yeah. Yeah,
hire
maybe
more
they could get
bands.
the
And put those perennials.
yeah.
perennials.
Their perennial fund.
I mean, okay, so like just chiming in as your friendly lawyer, not
Yes.
lawyer.
Limit the amount.
Because it is town-owned property, it would probably, we can delegate authority to deciding this, but it would be prudent to have like a lease agreement or like a rental
Insurance,
agreement
yes.
that just delineates who would be liable for what.
Yes.
And an attendant fee structure, which we can perhaps do in collaboration with like the bandstand committee if
Yep.
they want to submit it. And I also said, because I'm just skimming the great internets, and it does look like there's a number of like similarly situated municipal bandstands in Vermont that have rental agreements which are required even if no money is being exchanged. Like
Oh, okay,
even if it's a
interesting.
gratuitous,
I like it.
it's still a contract for the use of the town's property, which is preferable just because it clarifies the rights and responsibilities of the folks that are using it, as well as like what is the town's obligations in that arrangement.
I like that. So,
But then there's also these scenarios where it's like, hey, meet me at the bandstand, right? And
Sure.
and we already have insurance for that if like somebody tripped on the
Yeah,
bandstand.
it's just general premises liability, but to the extent that someone's hosting or like an event, that especially and particularly so if there's money being exchanged, like if we do want to collect some rent, even if it's nominal, it would just make a lot of sense. Like we should have a rental agreement in place if we're going to be using, like it's just like if someone wanted to rent this town hall for a function, you'd want the same thing.
We did
And
the
also-
same at the school for my son's birthday this past March, and it was literally just a one-page.
It's really simple.
It was very easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good.
and also
Just
limiting
a-
the amount of people because obviously it clogs up
Well,
shady rail. You can't have more people than what attends now. Like you couldn't have 5,000 people show up to that little corner gazebo.
no.
And get parking.
Is there a bathroom there?
There are portalettes.
Portalets, okay. Is that you who pays for the
Actually-
portalets?
I've got portalets over by the basketball and tennis courts, and the bandstand tends to put 2 portalets up
Okay,
By the
so
fire
they're
near
By
their
the fire
driveway
station.
during the
they're paying
bandstand
for the
season.
portalets.
Oh, okay,
yeah, gotcha.
interesting.
All right. Okay, so yeah, why don't you just check in with them and see what they say, and then otherwise, I think it's fine if you want to give people permission, and then meanwhile, we should be working on a.
That's similar to like the
rental
purchasing policy, right?
Yes.
We can have like a town, town municipal facilities use policy.
Yes.
Or something,
Shouldn't we ask
something
them
like
if they
that.
have something first?
Pardon?
Shouldn't we ask the bandstand if they're already using some type of?
Oh yeah, for like the concerts and
Yeah,
stuff.
right.
They
They
probably have
They tend
something.
they have a very set schedule. They do 7 or 8 Wednesday nights.
Right, but follow it, seeing if they have some type of legal document, like Stacy is
I'm with
talking
you.
about,
I'll call Paul and
that
talk to him about that.
outlines.
Yeah.
Might
So
already
this
have
would be
it.
more like, and we
Right.
probably also
It's
have
Vermont.
that
I
for
would
here.
guess there's nothing.
Right, but they
to be
might.
honest. Like
You
it's
never
probably,
know.
it might be a handshake.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah. There's been talk about trying to resurrect the corn roast in some form or other, and
Okay.
it's just a matter of finding the people that have the energy to do it, because the old corn roast grew very large and it outstripped the energy of the volunteers, and once they stopped doing it, people kept saying, oh yeah, I should go to the corn roast again, and I haven't been one for 3 years or
Right.
5 years. But anyway, there's still, a couple of years ago when we threw one, it was a pretty good turnout. We had nice weather, and people said, oh, we should do this again. But then it's a matter of finding the volunteers that got the energy to make it all happen, because these things don't happen all by themselves.
Great.
Like our little event at the Red Hen over the weekend.
That's right.
Good turnout. The weather was pretty miserable, but we had a pretty
It was fun.
decent crowd.
We had a lot of people there who were there showing, but not a lot of, I didn't think we had that many people.
We didn't have that much foot traffic.
We didn't have that much foot traffic.
Well, the weather forecast was,
I know.
the weather forecast was worse than the actual weather, but
Yeah.
what are you gonna do?
Okay, Mitch, so you have some homework. You're gonna go to the bandstand committee and you're
Yep.
gonna ask them what their thoughts are on the, just like on renting, like
A rental policy
a rental
or
policy.
rental agreement.
And then what are they currently doing? Like, are they doing anything themselves involving like an agreement of sorts for the use of the bandstand?
Yep.
Then can you report back to like Liz what you find? Unless
Absolutely.
you want to come back to one of these wonderful meetings, in which case.
If you're gonna have cookies, I'll come back. I'm kidding.
Your donuts.
Let's see if God brings it.
That's fine.
Okay.
All righty, thank you, Mitch.
You're welcome.
Okay. All righty, so now we have Hannah. Hannah, if you want to join us up here, and then we can, so now we're doing the mowing. So the reason behind this is because Janet Leader, I'm sorry, Janet Leader, not Janet Leader, Janet McKinstry resigned, and I just want to acknowledge and thank Janet McKinstry
For her many years of service.
the many years of service. I believe she, like, was she a town clerk too?
Yes.
Yeah, so she was a town clerk. She's done a just different capacity serving the town, and you know, is one of these sort of, you know, hidden heroes of the cemetery for many, many years. So let's give a round of applause for Janet McKinstry. So the reason that we are normally a cemetery commission would decide on their own, but they don't have a quorum because there's currently only 2 members, and 2 would make a quorum, except that one of Gary's son-in-laws is a bidder. So Gary has had to recuse himself. So Hannah asked if we would be the ones to make the decision. So that's what we're going to do. And I think given this circumstances, Hannah, you are not involved in making the decision because you're not actually on the select board.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So we have, it looks like we have, and you gave us nice little handouts here for
They're a little blurry, sorry.
for scoring.
Oh, the scoring matrices.
Yeah, scoring matrices.
You probably have a, you know, I've never done it before, so I was thinking
That's all right.
about guiding mine.
I think
so
it's probably fine. Yeah, it looks fine.
You might not need them.
Yeah.
Or
So we have, it looks like we have 4 bids, is that right? We have
Correct.
Lamson, I think it's the one that has done it for in the past.
18 years.
18 years, okay. So we have Lamson, we have Park Meehan from Central Vermont Property Services.
Yep.
We have R&R Property Care from Portal Road. And we have, is that it?
Chris Herring.
Oh, this was an email.
It was an email. Yep, so his original bid is at the bottom. I wanted
You only have 2.
the whole email.
Oh, and Bill May. Oh, no, that's
sorry. I'm sorry. This is our packet from the original meeting. Bill May is grave digging, and
That's different.
that's totally different. It's
Yeah.
those 4.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
So Chris Herring, and this is the Chris Herring right here.
Yeah. So I got 3.
Here, I have extra.
You have 3, I have
Randy Richardson?
Randy Richardson.
Oh, and there's,
turn it over. There's Lamson, and then turn it over, Park Meehan.
Oh, okay, printed on both sides, sorry about
R&R Property Care,
that.
and Chris Herring.
Yep.
So, if we look at Lamson, this is what I would probably do.
If it's helpful, I've done some of the math because they all bid in different increments.
Yeah, if you have the math, why don't you share that?
Yeah, so I have it by the week and I have it by the season.
Okay.
And one thing, I know it's the middle of May, but I've heard from a couple of them, and I think it's reasonable that the cemeteries now, the first mowing is more like 2 or 3 mowings.
Yeah.
I would agree.
So we're just really going from May 1st.
Okay, that's fine.
So we're May 1st to May to October.
Yep.
So
Okay.
so it's 6 months. So Lamson's Property Services for a week is $625 for all 3 cemeteries. That means for the season, it's $16,875.
Okay.
Say that number again, if you would.
$16,875 for the season.
And what was the week?
625. Yep. For Central Vermont Property Services, that's Park Meehan's, who also mows Center Road Cemetery. That's $380 a week and $10,260 for a season. For R&R, it works out to $220 a week and $6,000 for the season. And then Chris Herring is $88 a week and $2,000 for the season.
What?
I don't think Chris did, I don't know if there was a reconnaissance of what the work would be.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
He's also, so Chris is out of Berlin, Chris Herring is out of Berlin, and Lamson is out of Berlin. Park Meehan and R&R are both in Middlesex.
Okay. So, I don't know anything about mowing.
So you said that Park has done mowing around cemeteries because.
So, yes, last year, so I talked to Steve Martin on the, of Center Road Association, and Park, his first year was last year, and I asked him about it, and he said that he signed them on, they signed another contract for this year.
Okay.
So he said he was satisfied enough to sign him on again.
Okay.
He said there were a few hiccups in terms of staffing, like getting enough help. Steve attributed that to being young. Park's really young.
Yeah.
He's in his early mid-20s. Attributed it to that and kind of figuring out how to maintain a crew. Satisfied enough to sign him on.
I'm just gonna add to my comments because I hired Park Meehan last year to mow my lawn, and he didn't seem to have equipment small enough for my lawn. He was just kind of tearing things up, and
I've had that.
I told him what I wanted and asked him if he had the equipment, and he said, like an electric weed whacker for like little trees like this, and he said yes, and then he sent me guys with snippers that took hours instead of. So I'm now mowing my own lawn because of Park Meehan.
I've heard, so the cemetery was good enough, the cemetery said good enough. I have also, I think that, I've heard one person has him mow and thinks he's fine. Another person I know, it was a reliability thing.
I think it's reliability, yes, showing up and
thing.
having the people.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the staff. It's not
Right.
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 I don't know anything about R&R.
I can tell you something about R&R. R&R actually used to do all the mowing for Capital City, GMC, when I worked there. And he actually did them, the Volkswagen place and everything. We never had any complaints about anything he done. And he actually done Abel Toll and Kitty Toll's house up in Danville. So he goes everywhere. It's just, I think it's him and his father. I don't know if he has any employees, I couldn't tell you, but.
He has been the most in touch with me.
Okay.
So he has called me once a week asking for updates, and then he was the one he was the first who called me and said, just so you know, I've taken a look and they're in pretty rough shape. It's going to take 2 or 3 mowings to get them.
I saw this one on the way by.
His bid is also the most professional.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, I guess my question is,
And he's from Middlesex.
where is the cemetery commission in here?
I know, what's the budget? Sorry, I don't have.
It is, it has its own,
It has its own thing.
yeah, it has its own thing in there somewhere.
Thanks for looking that up.
Cemetery. Okay, so his budget, R&R comes in. Yep. Lamson is nowhere near. I don't understand.
Shocking.
Yeah.
What did we pay him before?
This is about what he has charged.
Yeah, but we don't ever budget that. So do you have other
Weird.
This is my not surprised
monies?
face.
I'm like, I don't get.
How is anyone stunned?
So again, this is a slog, and I'm trying to pull information.
And we all appreciate it because obviously you're immediately saving the town.
But I guess my question is, we base our budget based on our expenditures.
And reality.
And reality. And so I don't understand why, I mean, if Lamson has worked with us for 18 years,
why?
Where is this 16,000 coming from?
So I've paged through the sparse minutes of the last 10 years, like the ones that are listed on the website. And there was, and then I talked to Sarah Merriman about it, there was a Charles Schwab account.
No, Edward Jones.
Edward Jones, thank you. I'm just pulling out financial names. That was pulled from for a while, and there was some conflict over yeah.
Yeah, so what happens is we do have an Edward Jones account. It is the money for where somebody, it's an endowment that someone gave us.
Yeah.
Or gave North Branch. It's only for North Branch.
Right.
So we have to pay the rest from that cemetery budget. The North Branch stuff is paid from that endowment.
How much is the endowment per year?
It's $100-something thousand, but it's never.
So that's how he's coming in at much higher bid, and we're only covering those other 2 cemeteries. Well, if R&R has done work before, and he has a sense of that it's going to cost us this amount.
I'd make that motion.
Okay, and is there?
I am going to come out and say that I'm friends with most of these guys.
Okay, so
I'm
you're
going to
gonna
go
recuse
ahead
yourself?
and recuse myself
Okay.
from the vote altogether.
Great, all right, so Paul's going to recuse himself. Thank you,
I'm
Paul.
making a
for-
motion.
I will second it.
All right, and all those in favor of R&R for the mowing season of 2025 for the cemetery commission, say aye. Aye. And Paul recuses himself. Thank you, Paul. Okay, so thank you. Thank you, Hannah.
See how easy it can
We
be?
probably will not have to do the grave digging, right? Because there's no, everybody knows.
I think we will.
Oh,
No,
will.
you won't have to.
You won't have to.
You've already got this person doing it.
Well,
right?
we do have to put out a bid.
Okay.
We do have to put out an RFP. But Gary's not going to have to recuse himself, so we can do it.
Okay, great.
And we already have a meeting
When
set
did
up.
that cut off?
So.
After the first one. We didn't get after the first.
Oh,
Do we wanna just-
sorry about that.
What happened?
We didn't get back in, the Orca didn't get back in the Zoom meeting until after the first
Oh,
one, so.
It happens. Sorry, VLCT.
well, you have it on TV, so
Do you guys,
okay.
do you guys have a recording of it, do you know?
we're recording this.
To the cloud?
We always record it.
Yeah.
It doesn't last long. I think it's like a week or something. It goes to the cloud. But you're recording it right here, right?
I'm recording on a camera, but sometimes if there's like a speaker on Zoom, we didn't get the applicant speaker for the second part of it.
Yeah, okay. I don't know. Who watched?
Can we send
In
them the
fairness,
recording?
what
I think we could send them the recording if you want it.
No.
Yeah, I can give you the email for the production team.
Okay, great. I don't really know how to do that, but
Probably under the more button.
it's under like,
Email
well,
this
it gets
recording.
saved to the cloud. And
gotta be
then
there.
I don't,
I
have sent
I can check it
Zooms.
out. I've got
I've
administrative
sent Zooms
access to the
before.
account. So
Okay.
I'll check it
All
out.
right. So we are now at 6:30. We're moving right along, folks. But I've lost my agenda. Just want to make that announcement.
Thank you to all the bidders.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you.
Why can't I find my agenda?
Did I take?
Oh, no, here it is. Here it is. Okay, okay, so we are now on to update from me about 4 properties in the buyout process that have known or potential contaminants and have been flagged for Phase 1 brownfields contaminant testing, which is now not a covered expense by FEMA. So I did print out notes I had taken. I had a meeting with Monica Ladago. So just to give you a little bit of a backup, I've been on the Brownfields Advisory Committee, which helps make decisions about where brownfield money goes. There's a pot of money that will help like people who are buying properties, commercial properties, that they're going to use for, or any kind of property like they're going to use for, say, a housing development or a restaurant, and there's a suspected contaminant on the property. So for the last like 3 or 4 years, I've been on this Brownfields Advisory Committee, so I know a little bit about like what I'm about to talk about.
So brownfields is actually a name or a group of,
Well, it means brown like dirty. Like
Okay.
dirty field, like brown with contamination. I think that's where it comes
From
from.
brown water.
Yeah, like your ground is contaminated and it's a brown field instead of a nice fresh green field. That's what I think it means. It's not like capitalized like Mr. Brownfield.
Who administers, or like what organization?
So the regional planning commissions, I think it's state, it's funding that the regional planning commissions administer.
Okay.
And so the FEMA, so properties that are in the buyout, historically, if FEMA has identified the property as a potential property with contaminants, they have paid for what's called a phase 1 study, brownfield study. And that cost is around $2,500 to maybe maximum $5,000. And what that study is not a soil test. It's literally like a going to town records and, you know, looking who owned this property. You know, did a garage own it? You know, who, you know, was it a commercial property? What is the likelihood that there could be contaminants on this property? All done on the desktop. This isn't done like taking a soil sample to see if there's, kind of like what you do with listers, right? You're going back in time, you're looking at people's stuff, you're doing research. And so they do research by looking up state records to see, was this person ever fined, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? After the phase 1, they recommend whether or not it actually needs a phase 2, which is the testing of the soil, which is like $15,000 to $20,000 for that kind of work. Right now, there's no funding for towns through this brownfield program through Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission to do all of these potential FEMA buyouts, because it's not just us. 4 have been recognized in Middlesex. There's many more in Central Vermont and throughout the state. So for every town that's doing buyouts, there's a handful that are going to be required these testings. Now, I use the word required. It's actually not required. It's recommended. And with the documents that I sent you in this email, I didn't make copies of it, but in the email, what it talks about is that if we as a town decided not to do this phase 1, which, as a reminder, we're not budgeted for. We don't have money to do these phase 1s. We accept the liability that in the future, if there's any contamination that can be traced back to these properties, the town is liable. These properties cannot be developed, so we know that much. They can't be developed, and there will be an easement that's put on them that says they can never be developed. The scenarios by which contamination could occur are very unlikely, but yet there's still the possibility. And that would be, for example, another major flood. The river, you know, takes away all the land that was there, goes downstream and starts to poison someone. Or 2 doors down,
Let him prove
someone's right. That's going to be a really hard thing to prove.
Yeah.
2 doors down, someone's well.
That's where I was.
That's where I'm going.
That was my
2 doors down,
immediate
someone's
thought.
well has petroleum in it.
Which is
And-
not that hard to prove if you are downstream of that upstream contamination site.
Yeah.
Right.
But
So,
we didn't have any gas stations that went under.
well, there was a one of them in particular. I already know.
No.
Was a what did I say? 138 3 Mile Bridge Road is technically residential, but previously there were petroleum solvents, and the state closed the case in 1998 with contamination on site, and quote, activities were complete. That doesn't mean they cleaned the petroleum, it just means that they just acknowledged that there was petroleum. So we know that there was at some point.
It used to be an old truck repair shop.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember.
So, and let me just finish, and then I will open it up to questions. So if phase 1 is completed and it's deemed that a phase 2 is recommended, we could, as a municipality, join the BRELA fund, BRELLA. That stands for Brownfields Reuse Environmental Liability and Limitation Program. There is money for that, this 15 to 20K, that may help pay for all or part of a phase 2 study. and it depends on the situation, according to my source, Monica Ladago. If we do phase one, we're kind of checking a box that we have sort of done our due diligence. It does not take away the liability, but it opens up the opportunity for us to enroll in BRELA. If we decide not to do phase one,
You're not eligible.
we're not eligible for BRELA and these funds to clean up. If cleanup is even needed, right? So you'll see on the minutes, there's 4 properties. There's 2, the 138, that was the known garage. 140, I'm not sure what that is. But then there's ones next to them that are called in the vicinity that automatically get pinged because they're in the vicinity of these other ones, right? So the recommendation of FEMA, although they're not paying for it, is that these get their phase one studies, because otherwise the liability is on us. And so I called the lawyer today and I talked to him, and he knew as much as I did. Like, he came to sort of the same conclusion as I did. Well, there's the possibility of the neighbor's well, right? Very unlikely would a case be able to be made that, you know, downstream in Waterbury, we can tie a major flood that already gets, you know, people's fuel tanks floating in the river, right? So like that is far less likely to happen as opposed to something more localized. Also, when we're all dead and gone, right? Someone may want to turn that into a park, right? And they wouldn't, like, if we found out that there were contaminants and we wanted to make it a park space at some point, you could put like 18 inches of topsoil, and that just solves the problem, right? They just don't want children pulling grass up and eating it, right? Without the 18 inches on top of it. That's just an example of like a scenario. If there's petroleum in there, the way to mitigate it is with 18 inches, and that could potentially be covered by these funds. If we don't do phase one, we have no resources to do anything.
How much is phase one?
Phase one is 2,500, up to 5,000 maximum.
Per house?
Per house.
Oh, okay, I thought it was 20 each, okay.
No, that's if you go to phase two.
Okay.
15 to 20 is phase two, and that requires, so this also doesn't necessarily stop the buyout process. We don't have to wait till we get to the end, because what happens and if you want to take this, if that helps. Okay, if phase one, let's see. If we enroll in BRELA, which is what we would do after phase one, and it was recognized. So BRELA is not phase one. BRELA is just hiring some guy or some person to just do this desktop study to determine whether or not we need to go in. My guess is that they will say yes on 138. Maybe 140. I don't know what 140 is, because we know 138 was a contaminated property. So they'll probably say, yes, you have to do that. So then we would enroll in BRELA, and we would make what's called a corrective action plan, a CAP. And once we have substantial completion of our CAP, we get a COC, or Certificate of Completion. And then we are protected, right? In future, if there's anyone comes back and says, hey, blah, 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 we're protected. The lawyer, Rob Halper, at first thought thinks that at the very least we should do, you know, 1 or 2, the yes, not the vicinities. Do the phase one on those. Or we, you know, but the thing is, we don't have the budget. So is it something we borrow from our line of credit, right? To do this. the latest news as well is that Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission did get some funding. They didn't have funding like literally like the day before I talked to her, but then the day that I was talking to Monica, an email came in from them saying they were awarded this grant that they didn't think they were going to get that will open up some more funding, but there's more than just Middlesex, right? They cover the whole Central Vermont region. So they're looking at that, plus they're also looking at the CDBG funds, the Community Development Block Grant funds, which have a very small part of that 67 million or 65 million that is coming to Vermont. There's like 5 million that's available for potentially a project like this. I did put it into public comment today. Tomorrow's the deadline for public comment for the CDBG, and I said municipalities are going to need help paying for their phase 1 studies for the 4720 flood. So maybe there will be some money to pay for the phase 1. We don't have to make a decision today, but we will have to make a decision before the buyouts happen, whether or not we're going to do this phase 1, and we need to start scheduling them. So I'm not asking us to vote today. I did ask Rob to do a little bit more research, talk to some of the other towns, see what they're doing. You know, my first thing is just like, let's just let sleeping dogs slide, don't do any testing, and just go through the buyouts, because this is the scenario that I want to avoid. That we find out that like 138 3 Mile Bridge Road and 140 need phase 2 testing, and it's going to cost a huge amount of money, and then we're going to say, I'm sorry, we're not buying this property. You're stuck with it.
Right.
I don't want that to happen to these people. I want them to get their buyouts.
Nor do I want the town to have to pay $40,000 on top of
Right, but I think that, exactly.
the property taxes that we're already losing.
And because this is, just so you know, an unforeseen, unfortunate news that we're getting, like this week.
So
Not this week, because I put it on the agenda, it was last week, but.
here's my humble opinion on it. You have DuBois, who is now J.A. McDonald up above. You have CT Transport. Right next door, you have Pete's Auto Body. And right behind all of that are farm fields that are freshly manured on an annual basis.
We're going to find stuff.
Meanwhile, flooding through there happens just in my tenure all the time. Let's call it biannually almost. In my opinion,
Prove it was that
like really,
one
and
property.
this goes beyond like the neighbor down the road, because it's a very isolated incident and nothing else around ever happens. This is a flood area. I mean,
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and that's the thing. I agree with you. I think that this is going to, at the very least, if we said, okay, we're going to do these 2 properties, phase 1s will automatically be at phase 2 on this.
Yeah.
And then, and so, but here's the thing, you guys, and we're not going to decide today, because I do want to get more information from the lawyer, and I think we want to probably go with the advice of our counsel on this, but we are the ones who make this decision, and we have to live with it and die with it.
So basically what you're saying is if somebody then dies because their well was poisoned down the road, we have to determine whether we feel guilty because we didn't do this, or maybe it was possibly one of these other people.
Yes.
And how often do people get their wells tested? I know I've done it once and it was cost a fortune. I guess you can get it sometimes free, but FEMA's not going to give us free water testing anymore, so.
Yeah, but the point is that we are taking on this property, and when we take on the property, we're taking on this liability when we don't do these testing. And, you know, do we want to live with that when in 100 years somebody wants to do a park and they say, well, when Liz and Zara and those guys were on it, they made a terrible decision not to.
That's fine. Poor Peter had to take the heat for building homes across the brook, and what happened now with that. So I mean,
I know.
Hindsight's always 20/20.
I'm just curious, can it be added to the deed when we take ownership that nothing, no matter if it's a park or anything, can go there? I mean, can anything
We
can
could potentially
language?
do an easement that says no parks too.
Ever?
We could say
It's
never,
ours, right?
like no recreation facilities. I imagine we could do that.
Bring your dog at your own risk. But
you
also,
know-
didn't it say if you dump a bunch of topsoil on it, it's fine?
No, that's if they test it and they say that it's that would be for like a green space.
But in 50 years, if this town wants to create a park there, can't they
They
just
wouldn't be
dump?
able to if there's an easement.
But if we said unless they dump this amount of material at the cost to 50 years later, the town.
And who knows, by then it could be, you could put 10
No,
inches
we're not
on
doing
something.
that.
Yeah, or it could not exist anymore because the river has taken it away.
Right.
For sure. And right now, okay, so we are responsible for just that property parcel. What says anything about what has navigated outside
I know.
of, you know, these contaminants do not know borders.
Right.
Exactly, they don't know borders.
And it
I
could
know.
be, you know, radons popping
Which is
up.
why they have the vicinity, right? So this is what I also would potentially recommend is that, so we're gonna wait to hear back from Rob. See if he learns anything and what other towns are doing. We don't have to make a decision today. I think it wouldn't hurt to, you know, run it by the Conservation Commission because they may be like, oh, we can find money for this, right? I mean, because the phase 2 presumably is, you know, covered, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, who knows what these funds are going to be taken away from us?
What I'm concerned about, knowing what I do about contaminated soils, is that can be a very, very
Costly thing.
steep slope.
Yes.
That's why I'm
Sticky
like,
wicket.
let sleeping
Very.
dogs lie and be
Yeah.
ignorant, except that we will be consciously making a decision not to test when we do a buyout. And that's something that we have to decide as a board. I'm not deciding that by myself, and I'm certainly not deciding it without legal counsel. And even discussing with the lawyer, this is what we think, you know, share with us what.
See, so it's already costing us money.
Right, exactly. I was like, okay, I'm
That's a
keeping it 15
$175
minutes. I'm like,
question.
I don't want to go over 15 minutes in this conversation. Exactly. I was like, okay, so we're done. All right, bye. 10:14. Okay, so anyway, that's what we have. Action unlikely. So now we are on a little bit late on the treasurer's report. Do you have anything to report?
No, just, we paid the articles, everything except for the library payment.
Okay.
Which won't go out till the very last minute in June. And he actually has asked me for the money a couple times, and I said, we're not going to pay you that amount of money to have to pay interest to borrow that money.
Yeah. Okay.
So he was okay with that. And then.
But can I just ask you something? When I looked at the orders, it looked like only the highlighted things. Had we already paid the other ones?
If somebody had billed us and they absolutely needed the money, we went ahead
Okay, we had
and
already
submitted
paid. All right. So everything but in the orders is in there except for the library, or we've
Yeah.
already paid.
And we tried to always pay the senior centers or people that are
Yeah.
trying to get
Right.
food or that
Okay.
kind of stuff. We
Yeah.
tried to do those right away. And then the other thing is remember we had budgeted for the reappraisal money for this year, but yet it's not going to start until this July. So there's money sitting in that budget line item. And I think in order to be able to have enough money to pay the contract for the reappraisal to NIMRIC, that we should take that money and transfer it into the reappraisal
Yes,
fund
I think so.
anyway.
Yes.
I mean, that's just
Okay.
my suggestion
Do we need to
to
vote
do
on
that.
that?
No, makes sense to me too.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
because there's like 20,000 or whatever it's in there, we need to get that out and just move it to where we have the money.
Okay.
And we are one payment ahead.
And Sam, you said he's starting in, or Shelley, in July for the townwide appraisal?
It's supposed to be July 1st.
Yeah.
Okay. And does he have a process for it, like A through H and then I through Z?
It's a 2-year process.
Yeah.
2027 is when they're going to finish.
Okay.
And we have
so-
to make monthly installments on that, but we'll be a little bit ahead and have the money set there. And then we have the money for the next year,
Okay.
so we'll be able to transfer that money in, so.
Okay. And then
It's a
are you
constant
guys
flow.
handling those grievances as they come in?
They handle the ones that they do. I mean, the ones that, like the new houses and permits that we continue to do, we do.
Yes.
But anything that they're doing with the townwide.
They're
they
doing
do
the whole
first
thing.
grievance hearings.
Okay, and then BCA though still has to do if there's, but they're handling the first set. Okay, that makes sense. Does that make sense to you guys?
I could use some clarification on the moving budget items. Like, what are we moving?
We have a line item for the contract, NIMRIC contract for the reappraisal. So the contract's like, what, over $101,000? And we thought originally that the payment was going to start for this physical year that we're in right now, but it didn't. It didn't start till this following physical year. So the money was already earmarked and it was there. So in order to be able to stay ahead of the contract, we need to transfer that money into what we call the miscellaneous sub-accounts.
Okay.
It's a money market account that draws interest, but it has You know, the money just needs to go back in there. It's for that 50,000 goes for that asset and equipment fund.
So that
Which
covers
is
a
also
lot.
the next thing that has to happen
But
too.
did we budget another one for fiscal year 26? Yeah.
Yeah, we
okay.
did that. So
And then the
we'll
state
have-
gives us money too for that,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
It's not much, just so
Yeah,
you know. I mean,
okay.
it's very little money.
And every year, do we save money for it over 10, like over the 10 years? to
Yeah,
pay for
because
it,
that was my
right?
whole thing with budgeting for this 2026, is I wanted to make sure that we constantly are doing it, because this is something that's gonna have to be done more than just this one time. We're gonna have to, they're trying to do it, what, every few years?
Every 6 years, right?
So, and we,
Wait, what, every 6
They're
years?
talking, the state's talking every 5 or 6 years, they're trying to make it mandatory.
For a townwide appraisal?
Because otherwise
Okay.
you have that
So-
giant gap in
Right,
reappraisals.
but then that means we have to be saving more money.
Mhm.
Because 20 times 10 is 100,000, is
Is $200,000.
$200,000.
$20,000.
But are you saying that not every year we budgeted money for this?
no, it hasn't been done every single, there's been small amounts that
There's
you
been
guys
small
have been
amounts,
about.
right? So I
But
wonder if
last
this
year,
should be
because it's
added to the
contract, you spend more in
CIP.
it.
It's not really a capital improvement, but like it's a,
Anything-
Ongoing
Be a line
expenditure.
item.
But the CIP is anything over $5,000 it takes over 3 years to pay off.
okay.
That's,
So weird, so this is a
that is a weird.
So-
So,
weird thing.
but what
So this
happens
is
with
just-
that $100,000 contract is we pay like, I think it's $4,725 a month for those 2 years that they're doing that contract.
Okay.
But you're saying, so in 5 years, we may have to have another 100,000.
If it passes, that's what the
What do they think we're made of?
Man, that assets, 50,000 assets is getting a workout between trucks and reappraisals and.
But the reappraisal is a whole different
That's a
line
different line
item.
item.
Okay.
We have different.
Well, we don't know until
I
we know
can't remember,
either.
I mean, isn't it like, I can't remember how much you
So-
guys put in there every year.
Would we know that before budget season? It'd be close, won't it?
We talked about it.
We could
this
give you
budget
guys a full-time
season.
job.
Well, we found out listers are supposed to do all 900 properties every so many years. And we only do permits, and what we know, what we see when we do the permits, but that was one of the training, is that listers should be doing almost the whole.
No.
Oh, yeah, that was one of the training.
That's why they were talking about doing
And I
away
said,
with
"There's no way,
listers.
There's no way.
Yeah, but nobody
And
does that. I thought they
outsourcing
did
it.
it every 10 years.
Well, we haven't, 2017 was the last one we had
Yeah.
done here.
So it's 9 or 8 years, yeah.
Because there's so many laws and everything's changing so much, that's why some of those towns, when we were at that BCA
Yeah.
meeting, were saying they had done away with listers completely and outsourcing and
And outsource it.
hire out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can't
I
even
mean-
keep up with budgeting with the rate that they're.
I know. How would you be able to budget for that? This is just very,
I guess we'll find out.
Yeah,
this makes me
that's-
mad. Okay. Thank you for your service, listers. And all the stuff that you have to learn. Okay, so I think we should skip over the purchasing policy unless you want to talk about it. Did you guys get some stuff done?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about it.
All right, so we did talk about it with the budget committee.
Okay.
And the budget committee, like the outcome of that discussion was that we would, a recommendation to utilize a $10,000 limit for incidental purchases. So authorized purchasing agents could make purchases up to 10 grand without prior approval, provided that they are already budgeted and they're already in the budget.
And that would be you and Eric as
Right, that would,
the
yeah,
people.
you, Eric, Cheryl as town treasurer, so then the next block of purchasing authority would be the minor purchasing authority, so that would be $10,001 up to $30,000. And the purchasing agent can make those purchases only with prior approval of the select board. Actually, hold on.
No.
There's approval is required, and although not required, 2 competitive quotes would be should be obtained whenever possible. And what we came up with there is that in lieu the approval, instead of the select board, it would be approval by the chair of the select board and the town treasurer. So basically, if they need something that's over 10 grand, that's under 30,000, that a simple email to the chair,
Gotcha.
to the chair and the treasurer saying, hey, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna buy this thing, it's budgeted, and you can be like, yep, good. And so, you know, only if you cannot reach like a consensus in approving the expenditure would it need to then come before the select board. So that's, it would be a functional purchase authority of up to $30,000 without involving all of us. And then anything $30,000 and $30,001 and over would be considered a major purchase that would require complete like select board prior approval and obtaining at least 2 competitive quotes. Yeah.
Okay, so then that would be also educating Eric and everyone else who may think that they need to do a big purchase.
Eric was
Eric
with
was
us.
here
Yeah, he
for the
was.
conversation.
And so okay. So another thing that just occurred to me, because I think that this is helpful, that we don't get anymore from the treasurer, is a,
Budget.
the budget to actual. We would
We
get it
used
at
to.
every meeting.
Yeah, we used to.
Like a budget to actual, which is really helpful because it shows us, you know, are we on track with spending, or, you know, if Eric were to email me and say, I need to make a $30,000 or a $10,000 purchase, it's budgeted, I could go in and say, oh, looks like we've already spent that, right? Like, where are we gonna get the money to do this? Like, repairs are budgeted, but I know for a fact, in my own job, I have to actually ask finance where I'm at. I don't know off the top of my head, like, where I am in my
And that's
budget.
what
I have to-
Eric actually asked for that, like,
Okay.
you know, like, every couple of months he'll ask for it or whatever, and he actually, once this payable run is I haven't been able to post that yet, but once I'm able to post this run, he wants his fire department and his highway budget.
Okay, perfect, yeah. So I think it would be helpful also for us, even if it's just once a month, maybe you don't need it twice at, you know, both meetings, but maybe at the first meeting of the month or at the second meeting in the month, that we get a budget to actual, so we can see where we're at.
We were always usually real concerned like 2 months
Yes,
prior to year end,
Yes.
like year close, because that was like, okay,
yeah,
put the brakes like for the highway. We were like,
Exactly, yes.
Fuel and payroll.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
and
No
I think that
screwdrivers,
some
no-
of this is that we've just been, everything's been so chaotic with the floods and stuff like that, that we need to get back to doing that. So at the next meeting, Cheryl, if you could provide us with a budget to actual, that
I
would
can
be,
do that.
I think, really helpful, because it is, again, right around the corner at
Yeah.
the end of the fiscal year. And so, you know, we don't want to also not spend something if that we budgeted for it and we need it, right? Like, oh, we haven't ordered the computers, for example, or whatever.
Well, they actually should be,
Okay.
my computer should be coming this
Yeah.
week, but.
Yes, sorry.
I don't know where and when to bring this up, but also, yeah, apparently we had septic work put aside $30,000, and we should probably start RFPing for that.
Do we have plans? Did I ask that? Did we have plans engineered yet? Because that's step one.
No, it's just, all I know is we had 30,000 budgeted,
For the septic here?
yeah, for the town hall.
Was it in
septic.
the CIP?
I think you guys.
Mark said, but,
I think Mark, somebody gets confused. Okay,
Yeah.
I think
I
think
know,
it
but
was
there's an
planning on coming
elevator.
from the budget committee.
What's
Of the
that?
there's a budget fund,
yeah.
and there's money in that, and I think that's where you guys were talking about taking the elevator and the
The
heat
elevator
system and
is
stuff.
30 as
that's
well,
the
but
town
we're only to
hall.
spend it if it's needed, you know, if,
That's the town hall building fund.
yeah. So
How much is in the town hall building fund now?
Don't ask me off the top of my head.
Yeah,
have
I
no
think it's
idea.
like 100,000 or something.
So anyway, we're gonna spend $30,000 to redo the septic, and if we're gonna redo it this year, because obviously, you know, like, right, we can only dig for 4 to 5 months, we should probably get RFPs going, and I don't even know who does the RFP for something like that.
Well, we definitely need engineered plans before.
Well, if that is
That's-
in the building fund, that's not something we have to spend this fiscal year, because it just goes into the building fund.
Okay, how's the septic doing?
Well, that would be my next question.
Yeah.
It seems to be fine. We haven't had any issue. You know, last time they had to pump the septic, it was because somebody had spit a lot of bubble gum in one of the toilets, and
What?
there's a screen on the outside that catches that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And apparently that screen had been
Just got clogged with
with
bubble
somebody
gum?
chewing gum.
Wait, I'm gonna
When-
look.
It's an effluent filter.
Yeah, so when Kingsbury's had to clean it out, they were like, yeah, somebody likes to come.
Because Godfrey, why would you not put something like that in the trash?
I have no idea.
Because it's easy.
Okay, for the grounds, just FYI, we have 1880 budgeted for the grounds. That's the.
I'm just
like,
curious what prompted that. Like, I know there's been times we've had issues, like even back when I was here, we've had issues, but I'm just curious, like how we came to that. And did we just throw a magic number of 30,000?
I've only been on the budget committee for 2 years, so I don't know if it's been engineered prior, like if Sarah had it. I know she was all concerned that you could only flush the toilet 3 times here.
We haven't had that issue.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, we did have water, we had
I just wanted to
issues with
put
the
it on,
toilet
yeah.
filling with water today.
Let me put it on the radar, but let's
Well,
not talk about it.
I also want to say that there's a difference between, just as a reminder for the capital improvement, the CIP, or the capital budget, right? That the capital budget has line items for like, okay, we're gonna have to replace this truck, we're gonna have to do this and that, and this is how much it's gonna cost, and we're gonna, extrapolate out how much something's gonna cost. So the purpose of having a budget like that is during budget season, we open up that thing and we say, what are we up for? Like, we need a new roof this year, so we better budget for that, or we needed this and that, we better budget for that. Then we have this.
Right.
These are like these funds that we're building, right?
Paving
For
fund.
those,
But I'm pretty
for those emergency
If
things
we
that
have
needs
the
to
book
happen.
from the year before, because you're looking at what starts
But I
here
don't think
in
we need the
July.
book from the year before because it has budget fiscal year 2023, 24,
give
actual
the previous
23,
year,
24,
I think.
budget 24, 25, actual, or not actual because we don't have that yet, and then budget 25, 26. So there's 3 years here.
Okay.
I don't see anything about a specific,
For septic.
right, but it might, but my point being, it's probably in the capital budget as a line item. It's just not something that we didn't budget for it.
You didn't break it down. You
didn't break
set
it
amount,
down.
set an amount that you're going to move over. We're going to move this money from-
Potentially.
for the bridge fund. We're going to move $5,000 from our general fund money into this
Potentially.
miscellaneous account, so it could be an interest-bearing account,
And that this asset equipment fund
and that's the same thing.
is really for us to say, we have 150,000 in there, do we want to use 25 of it to buy down the debt for the international that we're going to replace? Or not, we might just borrow the whole amount for the international, but we have that money, or God forbid we have, or, God forbid something, has to be replaced and it costs 25,000 and it's a piece of equipment and it wasn't budgeted, we can pull from this. That's why we built this. That's why we built the town hall building fund, was to have like money in the time that we needed it for like, oh, we're gonna do a town hall renovation, we've saved 200,000, that's gonna go towards it. But that, so we're still doing the town hall building fund because we don't have a bond, we still have a building, we're gonna need repairs, that kind of thing. So I guess my whole point is, if you open up the capital budget, you're gonna see specific line items that are not in this CIP thing, and will be on occasion in our budget when it's time, right? Like a server, for example. Okay, we need to buy the server this year. We're gonna budget 50,000 for the server. It's gonna cost us 75. Maybe we'll take 25 from our fund. So
And that's the way we discussed it for the upcoming fiscal year when we were talking about the reappraisal. We were like,
Okay.
well, we don't have to use all this money to pay for this year, but we're still banking that money for what happens now and moving forward.
Right.
It's like a reserve fund
Right.
is the way it was explained to me is the CIP money is not to say, oh, we're going to go out and build a new building. We're going to go in and put a new
Right.
bridge. It's to start building that to where we have some reserve money because it's never been done. And that's why we're in this position right now, is this building is failing and the
Right.
town garage is failing and everything's failing and there's never been any money set aside
Right.
for those items.
And the reserve fund too, if you know anything about budgets, this will be, you'll understand this, but like if we don't spend all of the, say, 3,000 on heat, say we only spent 2,500, that doesn't get carried over to next year's heating fund. That would go potentially into our reserve fund, but not necessarily, because we might have overspent on another line
Somewhere
item,
else,
right?
right.
So whatever's sort of left over in the end of the year, and we often do have leftover, because we didn't spend every line item or we overspent, that gets into our reserve fund. And at one point, when I was on the board, our reserve fund was like, you know, $400,000. And there's a recommendation that you don't want a reserve fund too big. You want it to be like 2% of your budget or something like that.
And you guys spent $135,000 buying that rescue truck for the fire department.
Using our reserve fund?
Yeah, you wrote it right out of the checking account.
Okay, yeah, so, for what, yeah, and that's what it was used for. Now we have no reserve fund. So when we say we have no reserve fund, that means we don't have, all that money that we had built up over the years of excess budget was spent on the flood.
Yeah.
And I think the question just came up, it wasn't this meeting or possibly even the one before, but Mark had said, when are we doing septic work? There's $30,000 set aside, so.
And that's what I don't understand what he's talking about. Where's this 30,000?
So maybe he has it in somewhere in like his files, because he get that little sheet that she just gave you about the CFP.
Yeah.
That's what we get. We don't get, when we're
Right.
adding it to the budget, that's what we get. I don't get anything that says, oh, this equipment fund is because, you know, 20,000 is going to tires, or, you know,
Yeah.
whatever. It don't say
Well,
specifically
that's what I would
those
like,
things are for.
maybe we can invite him to come to explain some of this, because I don't see $30,000 set aside for septic.
So is there a more detailed budget out there? I mean, you guys are talking about line items, and this money's here, this money's there, but...
Well, this is our budget right here, right?
Right.
All these things are our budget. Then you have this here. This is where it gets slightly
I
confusing.
mean, I have this printout
Is
that
this
Cheryl
thing
did,
here,
which is a little bit more.
These
for this year.
funds, right, that are, these funds that, oh, where'd you get this, from the budget committee?
That's from the
When we were doing the
printout, when we
budget
were going through
negotiation.
this year's budget, line by line.
Okay, yeah.
So that's just to show you.
Is that the one that was
Okay,
approved
yeah.
by the,
So
At town
I don't
what
know,
we're
it might have
talking
been one or
about
two
is that,
before.
like, when I said to Cheryl, how much is in our town hall building fund? She says, I can't tell you that, I have to go look it up, right? She has to go look up.
because sits in the community,
It's in a bank.
it's in the bank.
It's sitting in a bank as a
Gotcha.
fund.
Sam has
I
something,
guess maybe I'm confused. We're looking for certain detail in
Yeah.
this.
and it's not gonna be in
And
there.
it's not there. And that was my question. Is this the detail?
That's a more detailed for this year, but I don't
For this
have the
year.
detailed for, you know,
But all you're
What
going to see
starts
in
in
there
July.
is you're going to see the CIP line items, but you're not going to see that detail that should have been in there, or is
the
not
book.
going to be in there.
There's a capital improvement budget with just an offline, you know, budget that is a best estimate of what we're gonna need for stuff. I see your hand, Sam. What we're gonna need for stuff down the road. Like, it's a 10-year plan of, like, the roof needs to be replaced in 2030, right?
They used to
The-
keep that in separate line items, and it used to be
Yeah.
like highway had theirs, and it said the bridge fund and the town building fund, town garage fund. And then you guys made the decision a couple years ago
Yeah,
to change that over to be in the CIP. So rather than being in each single, you know, the highway has their thing and the town hall has their thing, and, you know, whoever has their thing, and they're transferring it into the money market accounts, that money is now set aside and it's called that CIP.
And I would like also from you the balances on our funds.
the
That would be
funds,
handy
okay.
to have.
It's
Yes,
been
Sam.
reconciled.
It sounds like you might already have what I was gonna mention on the form, but the capital asset inventory, is that what you were looking at?
well,
that
I
has some
handed him the
information.
budget, but yeah, I don't know what she has in the town report.
Because that has like it talks about the septic and the vehicles, the equipment and all that stuff, and, you know, when it's expected to have to buy it again and all that stuff.
Yes,
So it
right.
sounds like you already.
Well, so that's what I'm talking about, are those line items that are, where did you see that? Like, is
Where's
it
the
on, is it
30,000
on
in
the,
septic?
It's on the spreadsheet,
What spreadsheet?
on the town site.
it must be a spreadsheet of the
It's
capital
called-
improvement plan budget.
Yeah, it's called the
Right.
Middlesex Capital Asset Inventory.
Yeah,
And there's different tabs, you have like the town
Exactly.
hall.
So it's a matter of where it is, not if we have it, it's where it is.
well, right, and so that, like, where do you see, where does it have a year for septic on that?
So, let's see.
Probably just part of the fiscal year.
Financing, So it has an estimated replacement and then estimated use of lifetime. The estimated replacement year, this says 2027.
So if we were to be doing, so that's a good example. So if we were to be replacing the septic in 2027, right? We would sit down during budgeting season and we would say, it's gonna cost, does it say 30,000 in there? Does it have a dollar value of it?
Yeah.
Okay, so $30,000 is what it's gonna cost to do this. We would do one of two things, or a combination of two things. We would say, we need to put, because we've done our research and we know that in 2027 the septic needs to be done, we would say, well, it's too late now for fiscal year 26, but we could say, let's budget for half the septic in 2026, and let's budget for the second half in 2027. Well, we're a little late for that. Maybe the septic could be pushed off. We could do that in 27 and 28. We could say, let's see how much is in our asset equipment fund. Assets, meaning the septic. Do we want to pay directly out of that? Or do we have something else that we want to use those funds for? Or do we want to put $30,000 in a line item under town hall as a new line item for the septic? And that gets explained in our budget. We say we're going to be doing a septic, and that's why the town hall budget has increased by 200%, because we're doing a septic. So that's how you budget for this. You either do it this way or a combination. We'll use half of the money from the CIP and we'll budget the other half. And we might do that during budget season to say, my God, where are we gonna make a cut? I have an idea. Let's only budget for half this and use the other half of what we saved for. That's why we're building this fund, to be able to do that, to buy down our debt. Does that make sense?
That's probably some of the wishy-washy at that point for the septic was we thought we were going to have a new building.
Possibly.
You know, right, that we're possibly going to have a new building.
So I don't
and that wasn't even
understand
gonna
why
be an
he
issue.
says we have money for a septic. I don't know. We have.
Yeah, especially if it's 27.
We have the
I don't know
need
why
for
I
a
came up with
septic in
it.
And
2027, but it's
Yeah.
nowhere in this budget unless the budget committee decided that they were gonna use, but I don't think it's the
No,
budget committee's
we didn't.
decision to,
And I also wouldn't, I know we're just talking hypothetical, but I
30,000.
wouldn't go push this until we confirm that it is in fact needed. It's just not a hypothetical replacement date. The septic
It
can
can be
vary
a-
based on use.
right, and it is, I mean, in some ways, it's not hypothetical, but it is like
And 30,000 is pretty low.
a logical,
Can be.
like, a logical lifespan is why we put it on 2027. But if there were a problem, so let's say we found out that the septic had to be replaced today because there was a big problem, right? And they said, you have to replace it. We would get the money, we would take the money from,
The CIP money.
or we would borrow it. And maybe it's depending on the amount, I don't think we'd have to tell the town that we're borrowing the money for it, but that's what we would do. Otherwise, that's why we decided to do a capital budget process, because we wanted to know what is it we're gonna need to buy and when are we gonna need to buy it so that we can be better informed during budget season. And
plan ahead.
And
And you
better
plan ahead.
prepared, yeah, financially.
yeah,
for
you
sure.
get prepared,
Yeah.
right. And so ideally, the budget committee says, hey, when they're sitting down with us, by the way, in 2 years, you're gonna need a septic. You may want to budget half of it this year and half of it next year. Like, that's the purpose. Does that make sense?
Smaller bites, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my budget lesson. And we did not finish, so do we want to bring up this document again, or for the purchasing policy?
There's two more things that we do need to like discuss and settle on, which we can do next time, and or we can do it now. I think I'll just.
Why don't you just tell us what they are?
They are the recurring purchases. So there's another threshold for if a total value of a recurring purchase is anticipated to exceed a certain amount during any fiscal year, the bid process shall be utilized and specify that purchase. And once the bid has been accepted, all future purchases can be made without the necessity of additional bidding until, such time as like the select board votes to initiate a new bidding process. So I think like, for a bigger, I don't know if we have any big recurring purchases. That would be like what came up.
Winter sand.
It was like dirt. Like if we know if like Eric needs to buy dirt or sand, in excess, whatever amount, he just needs to be like, we just need sign off from the outset, and then as long as it's within the line, like the budget, we don't have to think about it.
Gotcha.
He doesn't have to come back. So that can be kind of as low as we want. It could be like as little as 25. Most towns use 50,000.
I'd prefer to make it higher, because once again, FEMA is going to be looking at our purchasing policy and asking us to follow the purchasing policy.
Okay.
And when we're in an emergency scrambling around, it would be better to have a larger buffer than a smaller buffer.
So we could do like a 75,000 limit. Like if if any recurring purchases exceed 75, then we have to bid once. This is one actually where the lower threshold would be better, because the lower the amount, like the more things it will capture that only need to be bid once for recurring expenses.
Right.
So if we say if your recurring purchases exceed 25,000, like if we know that the town spends like 40,000 on sand, then we don't have to deal with that. So that's one where we could have a lower one so that we don't have to be bothered by it.
Gotcha.
That could match like the our major threshold, like the $30,000 or something, where just like if it exceeds 30 grand, it's recurring cost. You just have to follow the bidding process once, and then you're done, irrespective of the total amount, as long as the total exceeds 30.
Sorry.
I have a question actually for Paul. Is how much does winter dirt cost us?
Can vary. When we were getting it out of the town pit,
Yeah.
it was pennies compared to purchasing it.
Right, if you have to
outsourcing.
purchase it, how
And
much?
that reflected trucking significantly. So that number really dropped once we found all the, additional winter sand at the pit.
Yeah.
But that can be trucking can be upwards of $65,000. And sand can be, sand could be, maybe it was no, I think so. It's been a long time.
I think the last time we had it was like Dirt Tech done it, and I want to think it was like $38,000 total, but don't quote me on it.
Yeah,
Don't
that's
quote me
been
on
a
it. Let
minute
me
since
look.
I've done a road
So what are
budget.
your recommendations, Stacy?
Based on just other similarly situated towns, I'd say like 50 grand, 50,000 is like the threshold.
Because that would be excluding the stuff she's talking about from FEMA, because this is something that happens all the time, that it would be reoccurring on a fiscal year basis
Yeah.
versus.
Yeah.
That's why I say winter
once a
sand,
day.
because I know that's a big purchase that
Maybe
we
like
make.
fuel, if they get regular installments. I don't really know how much, like for our town expenses, I doubt it would really impact much.
I was gonna say, there's not many ticket items that would meet that
Yeah.
anyway.
Diesel has been up, down, up,
Yeah.
down. So,
But like diesel, that's the kind of thing where if there's just one vendor, then, we just, if the select board authorizes the vendor and we know that those purchase expenses are going to exceed 50 yearly, then it's like, once you're done, you're done. So yeah, my recommendation is 50, just because that's what other towns have utilized for similar thresholds, and I don't think it has a huge impact.
You can always edit it.
The other one is professional services, and that we can exempt from the bidding requirement the use of professional services like legal, financial, auditing, risk management, up to however much. So, even though we've got purchasing authority up to about 30,000 with really a light touch, we might consider like 50,000 or even 75, like 50,000 a higher amount, because professionals are more expensive. But it could be the same. It could be.
You mean like for doing our audit? Well, auditing doesn't cost 50,000, does it? Or not?
Well, the
No,
person who
like-
It hasn't
looked
yet,
at
but it's
this
going to.
town hall to give us that $3 million
Yeah.
thing or whatever, did
Yeah.
we RFP that, or was
We
that
did,
like
yeah.
okay?
Yeah, we are.
So yeah, professional services is generally different rubric for what we bid and then also what would justify a bid. So, we could say like up to 40,000 or 50,000 for professional services if we don't want to be, if we want to give more authority to the committees and purchasing agents to engage vendors, professional vendors.
Okay.
So as far as our audit goes, we've always had to stick with Bonnie. We've stuck with her so far since I've been here. Bonnie has increasingly went up in cost and does less. So, it put a lot more burden on the office because, I had to break packs of paper apart, take staples out, and scan everything and upload it to their system so they could audit us.
Yeah.
Every 5 years, we should be changing on it.
And when I said something about, I think we may send this out to bid, she said, well, good luck finding anybody that's going to do it any cheaper than me because I can guarantee I give you a $10,000 break. And then she gave us a quote for $30,000 because this year, because of the FEMA money, we have to have a single audit this year.
Right, yeah.
So we're going to have basically 2 audits this year. And I locked her into giving me a solid quote on that because I didn't want her to change again. But,
I think Hannah's presentation of 4 different bids for something is for a rather small line item is a really good example of why it still can be very worthwhile to have a couple of quotes. It takes some effort and it can end up in this, Hannah's effort saved the town almost 10 grand. So that, that adds up, and that's, I guess, I think the same thing could go for the professional services. We could say anything maybe we want to bid, maybe we want a bidding requirement to attach if we're looking at an audit over 30,000. That's probably, I just keep it simple since it's if we do 10 and 30 is sort of our working thresholds.
I think that sounds good.
And if that's, if that sounds good, then what I would do next is I would make a final draft with these numbers inserted. The only other language I'd include too is just the chair treasurer approval. If you guys can't agree or won't approve something, that there's the select board it should go before the select board. That would be unique to us. That's fine. And if we find that Eric doesn't like talking to us that much because of this policy, then we can also amend it to give the road foreman, more purchasing authority, if that makes sense too.
Okay.
So,
I think that sounds great.
Yeah.
Thank you for all this work.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, for sure.
I will circulate a final draft.
Okay.
With
So should we put it on the agenda for next
Yeah.
week?
Yeah.
That we, not next week.
It
but,
would be it probably would be
approving?
an action likely. Yeah, it would
Okay.
be review and
Review and
Adopt.
approve.
and
adopt,
adopt an updated purchasing policy or just
Yeah.
purchasing policy.
And then we get to move on to personnel.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
Yeah, actually,
Look at Larry's jumping out.
He
of his
is.
seat.
He's chomping at the bit. He's been.
well, VLCT also just updated their model junk ordinance, and I
Ooh.
thought I can do that one next.
Okay, we're gonna
A
put
lady
that on
called me
the
today.
select board goals, junk ordinance.
They called.
A lady called me today and she was talking about the trash and the different things that were happening, and she said to me that she was from Orange and they used to have that thing where you could return the sofa and stuff, and
We
for
had
the town people.
dumpsters for the people.
And I said, all right, we have somebody on the select board, Stacy, and she said
Same thing.
the exact same thing
It worked.
last time.
Well, because it was kind of fun too. They had a cookout at the fire department. You could go and get a hot dog and hang out with the
And a
road
couch.
crew. Yeah, you could go watch
It's
the
good
couches
PR for
go.
the fire department.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
it was a fun day, and it was kind of funny to see all the stuff that was coming in too. So, anyways, other business. So,
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Stacy, for
course.
that update. So don't forget to sign the orders. I did want to actually formally make a motion to, I don't think that we have to, but we usually do that, to accept someone's resignation. So Janet McKinstry's resignation, is there a motion to approve and thank her for her service?
I'll make that
Okay,
motion.
Zara, is there a second?
Sure.
Okay, Larry will second. So, all those in favor of accepting Janet McKinstry's letter of recognition from the Cemetery Commission, say aye. It says no
Aye.
action, but I don't know. So, I don't know why it says no action, but okay. And then, just to remind you guys too, that if you haven't enrolled in VLCT, Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns, You can, get a username and password and sign up for like their emails for trainings. I did get some, one of the BCA members, and that was my mistake, or I just forgot that, like, I sent you guys information about that BCA all-day training on listers, and but I didn't send it to the other BCA members who are like the Justice of the Peace, right? They're also BCA members that we forget about. So anyway, just as a reminder, I'm not going to be able to email everyone about classes, but that there are many good training opportunities. Most of them are free, not all of them. Okay, and then we need to approve Cheryl Granfield to approve liquor licenses on her own. So like if Red Hen needs a liquor license, she can just do it without a meeting. So that's a common
And make the
thing.
motion.
Okay, is there a second for Cheryl to sign off on liquor licenses?
I'll second Cheryl
Okay.
being able to sign off on the liquor licenses.
Okay, and all those in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, and then also approving Brenda. What's Brenda's last name? I didn't remember.
Eldershek. Eldershek.
Okay.
How do
If
you
you hadn't asked me, I could
How do you
say it.
spell that?
EDELSCHICK.
EDELSCHIEK.
ICK. And I'm
What-
actually,
I love that,
Eldershek.
that spaced look there for a second.
EDELSCHICK.
ICK.
Okay, thank you.
Brenda.
Wow,
She's
that's
our
a lot of
assistant town
consonants.
clerk.
And I'm
Okay,
actually,
gotcha.
I'm approved as well to do those. So,
Okay,
but
and,
Brenda's.
okay, so Cheryl and Brenda to sign off on excess weight permits. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion, 'cause that's
Okay.
important to turn those out.
Okay, yep, and is there a second?
Want me to second?
Yeah, Larry seconded it. Yeah, Larry. Woo. All those in favor, say aye. Aye, yay.
I'm a motion hog.
Okay, then the other matters that come before the board, you had a correspondence?
Yeah, no, so I just wanted to bring up that you and I had email correspondence with Jennifer Tuttle.
Remind
And this
me.
is,
She is-
well, she wants to close Brook Road as a
Oh,
throughway.
right, yeah.
And also, a better suggestion, in my opinion, stop sign moved from Center Road to Brook. Right there at the end where Center and Brook meet
That would
up.
involve a giant traffic study, which,
We don't have the money for. So I just
Really
wanted
need
to.
to have a traffic study.
oh
just
yeah, if you're gonna change the route of traffic and all, oh yeah.
I just wanted to bring it up as correspondence because when we talk to town members, we need to send like a copy to the clerk or whatever, if you're
Yeah.
communicating back and forth to town members. So I just wanted to bring that up. Regarding truck weights, did everybody get that email? There's something about truck weights. That's just a state thing that's going on?
They send us a letter, and we actually send that letter out with every single, when somebody sends an excess weight permit.
Yeah.
I made a copy of those. I made and we send, every time we return an excess weight permit, I send them that letter. And it's posted outside on the board
Okay,
and
great.
inside on the board as well.
Perfect.
And-
Yeah, I hate it when I see 18-wheelers fly by me on.
And we put it in the, we have an Excel sheet that we keep for the excess weight permits. It has all the insurance companies, the names, the phone numbers, and all the contact people that are coming through the town in those heavy trucks.
We also got an email, this is maybe a month or a half ago, somebody from Rutland about a resolution on a tax on due process. All of us got that letter. I don't know if that's something we wanted to add to.
We
She said
typically
you
don't like to do resolutions,
Okay.
but that doesn't mean we can't change it. But Middlesex typically, because it's, it's kind of a side thing that we try to just avoid doing. But that doesn't mean we can't do it.
And then just last thing was, I did reach out to Annette for the listers, and I suggested, based on our conversation, that maybe she join the cemetery committee as the third that they need, because now we've got this great guy. And also called Jimmy, who had also run for the select board, and put him in touch with you, hopefully,
Yeah, I
about
haven't heard
IT
from him
stuff.
yet, but-
Great, and also suggested he
Thank you for
join the
doing that,
select
Sarah.
board. So that's it.
Did he join the select board?
The
Budget committee.
Budget committee.
Oh, the budget committee, okay, good.
Did he join or not?
He didn't show up to this meeting, but Mark said he maybe bit. Did he call you about IT? Shit.
But, IT's kind of like in the process right now anyway, so.
I know, but with the
computer,
town
but-
website and everything.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
just
that's-
having somebody who knows IT, like
Oh,
volunteering
shit,
here in the
that
town.
actually reminds me, I want to send you something that you can give Lori that somebody sent us about doing websites for municipalities and their lowest rate and all this other stuff, but it was a flyer, it wasn't.
Oh, a flyer, okay, yeah.
It's not, it
I don't
wasn't
know
a
where
quote.
he's at with the bids.
Anybody's been calling here, we had somebody call here and they were just like, really like, we want to know everybody that bid and who got the job and everything else. And I said, I'm sorry, but number one, we don't have that information readily available. And
Who
it's
was
actually, I'd have to look at it and tell you. And I just said, look, that was put on hold. There's going to be a new RFP that goes out.
Okay.
It has nothing, it wasn't awarded.
Yeah, okay.
Times changed and things changed for the town because we were hit with a flood.
Right, okay.
And I don't need to tell you guys about this, I'm gonna go for another grant. This is not something we need to vote on.
I don't think
Just
so,
if I can get us money, we can get it.
Okay, so apparently we are getting, though, that was another thing. I did get an email from Ella Chapin saying we were getting
Oh, that's right.
potentially
The
$75,000.
I've got this written up.
For what? I forget.
I think we have to go for it. My one question, it was
Yeah,
a
it sounded like we had to apply for it.
Federal Emergency Management Agency Public Assistance Funds under Federal Disaster Declaration, DR 4810, which is us, and DR 4744, which is not our 2023. So I don't.
That could be St. Johnsbury. They had
So
a
I
big
don't-
flood that had a different code number.
So it's 75,000 to each municipality that is, as of June 2025, has had at least $5 million in estimated reported damages. The problem being that 4810 is really like 4.5 million. If 4720.
But I think-
So I have to ask Ella if 4720 is part of it. If so, then yes, we had $10 million
But
worth
if
of
it's not, we
damage.
just might not get the whole 75,000.
If not, it's like $50,000.
But for what? What does it give us? But it might be with this new Brook Road. Old Brook Road.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
another
you're right.
couple hundred
You're right.
thousand.
You're right. Might get us there.
Yeah, okay. So yes, if you can stay on top of that, because that looks like we have to apply for that.
Yeah, it's the remaining unallocated general fund balance.
Assuming they don't conflict with each other,
What do you mean?
the funding source stuff. It wouldn't, right? Like if with FEMA stuff?
Yeah, no. This
Oh,
is
like a
this is
double
from
dipping.
Double dipping
yeah, no.
situation.
this is a general fund balance
Okay.
that the state has for
But
this stuff.
They're just, I think they're giving it to municipalities because they feel bad for us.
Yeah, because we're
And that
such
we need
sad
money,
sacks.
right?
And because they're probably not going to give us money for it.
Yeah. Well, and we still have this 7% match that we're gonna have to pay for 4810. That can go towards it, maybe.
Yeah, 7.5, I think.
Okay, so, anywho,
Oh, those guys need the orders.
do some soul searching about this testing.
Groundwater.
Yeah, the brownfields. Do some soul searching, everyone. And it is 7:34, and we'll adjourn this meeting of the Middlesex, of the duly warned
Yeah.
Tuesday, May 20th Select Board meeting.